Ohio's landscape is dotted with rivers, valleys, and abandoned railways. But hidden among these rails are bridges that carry more than trains. They carry echoes of the past, mysterious screams, and the restless spirits of those who never left. Tonight, we will explore 25 of Ohio's most haunted railroad bridges, where phantom footsteps resound, screams pierce the night, and ghostly figures appear along rusting tracks. Each bridge has a dark history of accidents, suicides, and unexplained deaths, leaving behind restless spirits that linger long after the trains have stopped running. As you approach these bridges, listen carefully. The wind may carry faint screams, the planks may creak under invisible footsteps, and shadows may move across the rails where no one stands. These are not ordinary bridges. They are gateways to the tragedies that haunt Ohio's railways. High Bridge in Columbus, Kentucky, rises majestically above the Kentucky River, a structure of steel and stone that has carried countless trains across its span since the late 19th century. By day, it is admired for its engineering, the way it stretches across the river valley, connecting one side to the other with unwavering precision. But by night, the bridge takes on an altogether different character. These sounds often emerge in the quiet of night, when the river valley is still and no trains are scheduled to run. Some witnesses report feeling the vibrations of a train passing beneath them, even though the tracks are empty. A low hum that seems to reverberate through the steel structure. For many, the auditory illusion or, perhaps reality, of a moving train on a deserted bridge is enough to provoke fear, leaving a lingering sense that the bridge is alive with echoes of the past. Shadowy figures on the tracks are another frequent and unsettling occurrence. Visitors describe human-shaped silhouettes appearing along the rails, sometimes walking deliberately, sometimes standing motionless as if waiting. These figures often seem indistinct, their edges blurred, flickering in and out of sight, and they appear to be dressed in old-fashioned clothing from decades past. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints, no disturbance on the gravel, and no sign they were ever there. Many who witness these apparitions describe a feeling of being observed, an awareness that these figures are aware of the living crossing the bridge, yet cannot be reached. One night, a local resident named David recounted a particularly unnerving encounter while walking across High Bridge. The moon was low in the sky, casting long shadows along the river below. As he approached the center of the bridge, he heard the deep, resonant roar of a train engine approaching from the north. Startled, he looked down the tracks, but no train was in sight. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows ahead, walking slowly along the rail. As David froze in fear, the figure vanished before his eyes, and the sounds of the phantom train faded into an eerie silence. Moments later, he heard a piercing scream echoing from the river valley below, a sound so vivid travelers describe hearing cries that seem to originate from the water below or the cliffs flanking the river, usually just after witnessing a phantom train or a shadowy figure. The screams are often sudden, sharp, and filled with despair, lingering in the night air before fading into silence. Big Walnut Bridge in Franklin County stands as an eerie monument to both engineering and history. Stretching across a quiet expanse where the Big Walnut Creek winds its way through forests and fields. By day, it is a forgotten relic, an abandoned structure overgrown with weeds and rusted rails that hint at a long-past era of trains and travel. But as night descends, the bridge transforms into something far more sinister. Locals report ghostly apparitions standing along the rails, phantom figures whose presence is both compelling and terrifying. Visitors hear the piercing sound of screams carried across the water, The Scioto River Railroad Bridge in Columbus, Ohio, is an imposing structure of steel and iron that stretches across the dark waters of the Scioto River. By day, it is a relic of industrial progress, admired for its intricate framework of beams, trusses, The most commonly reported experiences involve phantom footsteps. Travelers describe hearing the rhythmic clatter of shoes striking the steel surface, sometimes following them along the bridge, sometimes coming from areas where no one could possibly be walking. The sounds often vary in volume, from faint taps that suggest a single person too heavy, echoing steps as if multiple figures are pacing across the rails. Witnesses report that the footsteps seem to have a pattern, walking deliberately yet unpredictably, stopping and starting with no visible cause. The river below was dark and still, reflecting only the dim glow of distant city lights. As he walked along the walkway, he heard a series of footsteps behind him, rhythmic and deliberate. Thomas turned quickly, expecting to see another person, but the bridge was empty. Moments later, he heard a whisper, soft and almost unintelligible, carried along the wind through the steel beams, sending a shiver down his spine. The whispers are a distinctive and haunting element of the bridge's spectral reputation. Visitors frequently report hearing soft, murmuring voices that seem to come from the structure itself. Some whispers appear to form words or fragments of phrases, often warning, recounting past events, or calling out names. Others remain unintelligible, a murmured hum of sound that raises the hairs on the back of the neck. Many believe these voices are echoes of workers who perished on the bridge, or of travelers who met untimely ends nearby. The combination of footsteps, shadowy figures, and whispers creates an immersive haunting experience, where the auditory and visual elements of the supernatural seem inseparable. Local legend and history provide context for the bridge's haunting. The Scioto River Railroad Bridge has been the site of numerous accidents and tragedies throughout its long existence. Workers who maintained the structure often faced dangerous conditions, and there have been reports of falls, injuries, and deaths dating back decades. Some believe that the shadowy figures are the spirits of these workers, eternally replaying their duties or wandering the structure in unrest. The footsteps, whispers, and sudden chills are interpreted as residual energy, a replay of moments frozen in time, or as conscious spirits interacting with those who venture onto the bridge after dark. Several visitors describe encounters that combine multiple phenomena, A group exploring the bridge at night reported hearing footsteps behind them while observing a shadow move between steel beams. As they froze in fear, a whisper floated through the air, almost as if someone was speaking directly to them. When they attempted to approach the figure, it vanished, leaving only the sound of footsteps fading into silence. The layered combination of sight, sound, and tactile sensation left them shaken, with an overwhelming sense that the bridge was a space where the past and present intersected in tangible, unsettling ways. Even those who know the bridge well acknowledge its eerie reputation. Locals advise caution when approaching the structure at night, noting that while the bridge is a marvel of engineering by day, it becomes a place where the echoes of history and the unexplained manifest in ways that challenge perception. Drivers and pedestrians passing nearby have reported glimpses of shadowy figures moving across the tracks, paired with the faint sound of footsteps or whispers carried by the wind. Despite being abandoned in many sections, the bridge seems to retain an energy that responds to human presence, a reminder that some histories cannot remain buried. The Scioto River Railroad Bridge is more than just an abandoned span over the river. It is a corridor where the living encounter the echoes of the past. Phantom footsteps trace the steel beams, shadowy figures appear and vanish without warning, and whispers echo from the structure itself, recounting moments long gone. For visitors venturing onto the bridge at night, the experience is immersive and unsettling, as the bridge becomes a space where history, memory, and the supernatural converge. The steel and iron seem to remember every step taken upon them, and the shadows continue to wander, unseen but deeply felt. For anyone who crosses the Scioto River Railroad Bridge after dark, the rails are never truly empty, and the echoes of the past linger, waiting silently in the night for the next witness to their haunting presence. But as night falls, the bridge transforms into something far darker. The bridge has earned a reputation as one of Warren County's most haunted locations, a place where the living can feel the presence of the past in ways that are both terrifying and inexplicable. When approached, these figures vanish instantly, leaving behind only the sound of the visitor's own footsteps and a lingering sense of being watched. Many who experience these apparitions describe a heavy, oppressive feeling, as if the air around the bridge thickens, warning them to leave before it is too late. One visitor, a young man named Ethan, recounted a terrifying encounter while exploring the bridge on a chilly October night. He had walked halfway across the span when he saw a figure standing near the center, barely illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. The figure appeared to be a man, wearing a long coat and a hat pulled low over his face. As Ethan froze, the figure lifted its head and stared directly at him. When he took a cautious step forward, the apparition vanished into thin air. Almost immediately, a cold wind swept across the bridge, enveloping Ethan in a shiver so intense it left him momentarily paralyzed. Moments later, he heard a scream, sharp and piercing, echoing across the river. The sound seemed impossibly close, yet with no discernible source, leaving Ethan terrified and hurrying off the bridge as quickly as he could. The sudden cold drafts that visitors report are another hallmark of the haunting. Witnesses describe chills that sweep across the bridge with no apparent origin, sometimes following them along the tracks, intensifying near the middle of the span. Some report that the air feels heavier in certain sections, as if invisible presences are clustered there. The drafts often coincide with sightings of ghostly figures or the sound of screams, reinforcing the sense that the bridge is a living repository of lingering energy. For many, the combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an immersive, unsettling experience that is difficult to forget. Screams and other unexplained noises are frequently reported along the Little Miami Railroad Bridge. Visitors describe hearing anguished cries that seem to come from the shadows, often echoing across the river below in a way that distorts their origin. These sounds are sometimes accompanied by the creaking and groaning of the wooden ties, as if the bridge itself is reacting to the presence of the living. Some believe the screams are echoes of past accidents or tragedies that occurred during the bridge's active years, while others interpret them as warnings from spirits who remain tethered to the location, unable to move on. The auditory phenomena are particularly haunting because they often occur without any visual cue, leaving witnesses to confront the unknown with only the echoing cries to guide their imagination. Local lore ties the haunting to the bridge's history. The Little Miami Railroad Bridge was a vital link for trains carrying goods and passengers across the region, and it is said that accidents and fatal incidents occurred during its decades of use. Workers maintaining the structure faced dangerous conditions, and there are stories of individuals falling from the bridge or being struck by passing trains. Many believe that the ghostly figures are the spirits of those who perished, eternally retracing their steps along the tracks or warning the living of the dangers they once faced. The cold drafts and screams are thought to be residual energies, manifestations of trauma that have lingered in the wood and steel of the bridge, replaying events from the past for anyone who ventures there at night. Several visitors have reported experiences that combine multiple elements of the haunting. A group of teenagers crossing the bridge after dark described seeing a shadowy figure on the tracks, hearing sudden screams, and feeling a chilling wind sweep through their group. When they tried to approach the figure, it vanished, leaving only the echo of footsteps fading into the night. These layered experiences suggest that the haunting is not limited to one type of phenomenon, but is instead an immersive, multisensory experience that affects all who dare to enter the bridge after dark. Even locals who pass near the bridge during the day acknowledge its ominous reputation. Many warn that the bridge is not simply abandoned, but carries the weight of its history, with residual energy from decades of human activity lingering in the structure. Drivers passing nearby at night have reported glimpses of figures moving along the tracks or hearing faint screams, reinforcing the belief that the bridge is more than just steel and wood. It is a place where the past persists in ways that challenge rational understanding. The Little Miami Railroad Bridge is more than a forgotten relic of Ohio's railroad history. It is a corridor where the living meet echoes of the past. Ghostly figures walk along the tracks, screams pierce the night air, and cold drafts sweep across the span, creating a hauntingly immersive experience for anyone daring enough to cross after dark. The bridge becomes a liminal space where time and memory overlap, where those who perished continue to wander, and where the natural quiet of the river is punctuated by supernatural presence. For visitors, the experience is unforgettable, a chilling reminder that some histories refuse to remain in the past, and that the Little Miami Railroad Bridge continues to carry the footsteps, voices, and shadows of those who came before. The Allentongue River Bridge in Delaware County, Ohio, spans the calm waters of the Allentongue River, its steel framework and weathered wooden ties standing as a quiet testament to a bygone era of railroad travel. By day, it appears serene, almost picturesque, with sunlight reflecting off the water below and the surrounding trees creating a peaceful atmosphere. But as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place of mystery and unease. Visitors report shadowy figures moving along the rails, unexplained groans echoing through the structure, faint whispers that seem to drift on the wind, and spectral lights that move across the tracks. These phenomena have given the Allentongue River Bridge a reputation as one of Delaware County's most haunted locations. drawing the curious and the brave to witness its unsettling presence. Shadowy figures are the most frequently reported occurrence on the bridge. Witnesses describe human-shaped silhouettes walking along the rails or standing motionless among the beams. Some appear as faint outlines, while others seem more defined, occasionally dressed in clothing from decades past, reminiscent of railroad workers or travelers from a long-forgotten era. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving nothing behind. Many who encounter them report a sudden chill in the air or an oppressive feeling of being watched. The bridge seems to carry a consciousness of its own, a memory of the countless footsteps that once crossed its surface, and these figures appear to be echoes of those who walked the bridge long ago. One visitor, a young man named Daniel, described his experience on a cold autumn night. He had come to photograph the moonlight reflecting off the river when he noticed a shadow moving along the far rail. At first, he thought it was another person, but as he approached, the figure glided rather than walked, disappearing into the darkness before he could reach it. Almost immediately, he heard a low groan, as if the steel beams were straining under an unseen weight, followed by faint whispers that seemed to drift toward him from all directions. The voices were unintelligible but unmistakably human, creating an atmosphere of tension and dread that sent him quickly retreating from the bridge. Unexplained groans and whispers are an unsettling hallmark of the bridge's hauntings. Visitors report hearing deep, metallic groans, as if the structure itself is alive, accompanied by soft murmurs that seem to come from the air around them. Sometimes, the whispers appear to form words, faint fragments of sentences that hint at warnings or untold stories. Other times, the sounds remain indecipherable, creating a pervasive sense of unease. These auditory phenomena often coincide with sightings of the shadowy figures, amplifying the feeling that the bridge is inhabited by spirits tied to its past, replaying their presence for anyone who ventures there at night. Spectral lights moving across the tracks add a visual element to the haunting. Witnesses describe small, flickering lights that seem to float above the rails or glide along the bridge, moving in ways that defy natural explanation. Some lights appear bright and focused, resembling lanterns or distant train lights, while others glow softly, as if illuminated from within by an unseen source. These lights often accompany the shadowy figures, enhancing the bridge's otherworldly atmosphere and giving the impression that the bridge itself is a stage for spectral reenactments of its past. Local legend suggests that the hauntings are tied to the bridge's history. The Olentangy River Bridge was once a busy railroad crossing, and accidents, falls, and other tragedies occurred over the decades. Many believe that the figures are the spirits of those who died on or near the bridge, eternally wandering the rails. The groans, whispers, and lights are interpreted as manifestations of residual energy, echoes of moments frozen in time, replaying for those who dare to witness them. The combination of history, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena has made the bridge a location that captures both fear and fascination. Several visitors have described experiences combining multiple phenomena. One group, crossing the bridge, reported seeing a shadow move along the tracks, hearing a deep groan echo through the steel beams, and witnessing a faint light glide across the rails. When they tried to approach, the figure vanished, leaving only a lingering chill and the sound of faint whispers. These layered experiences suggest that the haunting is immersive, affecting sight, sound, and even the physical perception of those on the bridge. Even locals passing near the bridge during the day acknowledge its eerie reputation. While the structure may seem peaceful in sunlight, those who have experienced the nighttime phenomena warn that the bridge carries a lingering presence, a reminder of the lives and events that remain tied to its rails. Drivers passing by at night sometimes glimpse figures or lights along the tracks, reinforcing the belief that the Olentangy River Bridge is more than steel and wood. It is a place where the past remains alive. The Olentangy River Bridge is more than an abandoned railroad crossing. Shadowy figures move along the tracks, groans and whispers fill the night air, and spectral lights drift across the rails, creating an immersive and haunting atmosphere. Visitors who dare to step onto the bridge after dark encounter echoes of the past, moments of unresolved history, and the lingering presence of those who cannot leave. For anyone who crosses the Olentini River Bridge at night, the rails are never truly empty, and the haunting presence of the past lingers, watching silently from the shadows. The Hocking River Railroad Bridge in Athens County, Ohio, spans the dark, winding waters of the Hocking River, standing as a quiet monument to the era when trains connected towns and carried the lifeblood of commerce across the region. By day, the bridge appears as a relic of industrial progress. Its steel beams and wooden ties weathered by decades of sun, rain, and wind. The river below reflects a lattice of metal and calm ripples, and the surrounding forest gives the area a peaceful, almost picturesque quality. But as night falls, the bridge transforms. Visitors report hearing the unmistakable sounds of phantom trains approaching along the rails. Yet when they look, no locomotive is in sight. Shadowy figures appear across the span, sometimes pacing slowly, other times standing still, only to vanish the moment they are noticed. The Hocking River Railroad Bridge has earned a reputation as one of Athens County's most haunted locations, where the line between the living and the spectral seems to blur in chilling ways. Witnesses describe the thunderous rumble of engines, the rhythmic clanging of wheels against steel, and the vibrations that resonate through the wooden ties and iron framework. These sounds often start faintly in the distance, growing louder as if a train is racing toward them, only to fade suddenly, revealing empty tracks and a quiet night. For those who experience it, the auditory illusion is so convincing that it tricks the senses, making even the most rational observer glance toward the horizon, expecting to see a locomotive emerge from the darkness. Some report feeling a vibration beneath their feet, as if the bridge itself were responding to the phantom train, further enhancing the sense of unease. Alongside the sounds of phantom trains, visitors frequently encounter shadowy figures. These silhouettes appear along the tracks, gliding or pacing as if following some unseen rhythm. Many witnesses describe the figures as vaguely human, sometimes appearing dressed in period clothing reminiscent of railroad workers or travelers from decades past. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving only empty tracks and the quiet echo of the visitor's own footsteps. The sudden disappearance of these apparitions often coincides with a sudden chill, a tightening of the chest, or a feeling of being watched, adding to the bridge's unnerving atmosphere. One particularly chilling account comes from a man named Samuel, who explored the bridge one late autumn evening. He had crossed to photograph the moonlit river, enjoying the stillness of the night. As he reached the center of the bridge, he heard the rumble of an approaching train, the sound growing louder and louder, accompanied by the metallic screech of wheels against rails. His heart raced as he looked up and saw a shadowy figure standing on the far tracks. Samuel called out, but the figure did not move or respond. As he took a cautious step forward, the silhouette dissolved into thin air. Almost simultaneously, the phantom train sounds faded, leaving only the echo of the river below. Samuel was left with a lingering sense of dread, unable to shake the feeling that unseen eyes had been watching him the entire time. The combination of auditory and visual phenomena creates an especially immersive haunting. Visitors report hearing phantom trains while simultaneously seeing shadowy figures, often accompanied by inexplicable, cold drafts that sweep across the bridge. Some describe layered experiences, where the sounds of the train, the appearance of figures, and the sudden chills overlap, creating a scenario that feels real and immediate. Others have reported a feeling of heavy oppression, as though the bridge itself were aware of their presence and reacting to their intrusion. Local history adds context to the haunting. The Hocking River Railroad Bridge was a crucial crossing for freight and passenger trains for decades. Accidents, falls, and collisions occurred frequently during its operation. Many believe the phantom trains are echoes of these tragic events, repeating over and over for anyone who dares to walk the bridge at night. The shadowy figures are thought to be the spirits of workers or travelers, eternally tied to the bridge, retracing steps and routines from a bygone era. Visitors often report experiences that combine multiple phenomena. A group of friends crossing the bridge at night describes seeing a shadow moving along the tracks while hearing the roar of an approaching train. As they froze in place, the figure vanished, leaving behind only the vibration of the rails and the fading echo of ghostly wheels. Such encounters suggest that the haunting is multisensory, blending sight, sound, and physical sensation into an immersive, terrifying experience. Even locals who frequent the bridge during the day acknowledge its eerie reputation. While it appears peaceful and ordinary in sunlight, the bridge takes on a foreboding presence at night. Residents warn that the bridge is not just abandoned steel and wood, but a corridor where the past lingers and where the spirits of those long gone continue to manifest. Drivers passing nearby have occasionally reported glimpses of shadowy figures along the rails or the distant sound of phantom trains, reinforcing the idea that the Hocking River Railroad Bridge remains haunted by the echoes of history. The Hocking River Railroad Bridge is more than a relic of Athens County's railroad past. Phantom trains rumble along empty rails, shadowy figures appear and vanish without warning, and chilling sensations sweep across the bridge at night. Visitors who dare to cross it after dark confront echoes of tragedy, memory, and restless spirits. For anyone stepping onto the Hocking River Railroad Bridge under the cover of night, the rails are never truly empty, and the lingering presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to be witnessed by those brave enough to venture into its haunting embrace. The Licking River Railroad Bridge in Licking County, Ohio, stretches across the valley like a forgotten monument, a relic of an era when steam and steel dominated the landscape. By daylight, it appears calm and unassuming, the river flowing quietly beneath its aged wooden ties and rusting steel framework. Trees line the riverbanks, their branches casting shadows across the bridge, giving it a quiet, almost picturesque charm. Yet, as dusk falls and night settles in, the bridge takes on a more sinister air. Visitors report ghostly passengers aboard abandoned trains, unexplained screams echoing across the valley, and shadows that flit across the bridge's structure, vanishing when observed directly. The Licking River Railroad Bridge has long been considered one of Licking County's most haunted locations, a site where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge. One of the most frequent reports comes from visitors who claim to see ghostly passengers on trains that no longer exist. These spectral locomotives appear silently on the tracks, sometimes slowly approaching or standing still, as if waiting for an unseen conductor. Observers describe faint figures in old-fashioned attire, seated in carriages, staring blankly ahead or gesturing as if acknowledging the living. The experience is unnerving, as the trains seem fully formed, yet are intangible, fading into mist when anyone dares to approach. Witnesses often report a sudden chill or the feeling of being observed while these apparitions manifest, reinforcing the notion that the bridge is a place where the past continues to linger. Unexplained screams are another common phenomenon reported along the bridge. Visitors describe hearing anguished cries echoing across the valley, seemingly originating from the tracks themselves or from the dark shadows beneath the bridge. These screams vary in intensity, from distant, almost mournful wails to piercing shrieks that startle and disorient anyone nearby. Some believe the sounds are residual echoes of past accidents, workers falling from the bridge, derailments, or other tragic events from the railroad's operational days. Others suggest the cries are warnings, a spectral plea to stay away from a place haunted by suffering. The echoes are often amplified by the valley below, making it impossible to discern their exact origin, adding to the bridge's eerie and unpredictable atmosphere. Shadows moving across the structure add a visual dimension to the haunting. Visitors report seeing dark forms dart along the steel beams, cross the wooden ties, or linger at the edges of the bridge. These shapes are fleeting, vanishing instantly when noticed, leaving witnesses questioning whether they were real or imagined. Some shadows appear humanoid, while others are less defined, like wraiths or smoke drifting across the tracks. The combination of moving shadows, spectral trains, and ghostly passengers creates an environment that feels alive with the presence of the past. an invisible performance that only reveals itself to those who venture onto the bridge after dark. One visitor, a young woman named Claire, recounted her experience one late October evening. She had come to photograph the river under the rising moon, fascinated by the old railroad infrastructure. As she approached the bridge, she noticed a faint glow on the tracks. Squinting, she saw what appeared to be a train, with silhouettes of passengers sitting motionless in the carriages. She froze, her heart pounding, as a shadowy figure darted across the ties, disappearing instantly. Suddenly, a scream pierced the night, echoing through the valley and sending a chill down her spine. Claire ran from the bridge, but even from a distance, she could feel the lingering presence of something unseen, as if the ghosts of the bridge were aware of her intrusion. Local history helps explain some of the bridge's reputation. The Licking River Railroad Bridge was a vital link for trains transporting passengers and freight across the county. Throughout its history, accidents were not uncommon. Falls, collisions, and derailments claimed the lives of workers and travelers alike. Many believe the ghostly trains and passengers are manifestations of those who perished, replaying their final moments over and over. The shadows and screams are thought to be echoes of fear and pain, left behind in the bridge's structure, waiting for the living to witness them. Over time, these accounts have woven a complex tapestry of haunting experiences, making the bridge both a historical landmark and a paranormal hotspot. Several visitors report layered encounters, where multiple phenomena occur simultaneously. Groups crossing the bridge have described seeing a ghostly train approach, witnessing shadows moving across the rails, and hearing screams or murmurs at the same time. These combined experiences create a fully immersive haunting, affecting sight, hearing, and even the physical senses. Many report feeling cold drafts, sudden pressure on the chest, or an overwhelming sense of being watched. Such experiences suggest that the bridge is a conduit for the energy of its past, a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural coexist in tangible ways. Even those who see the bridge during daylight hours acknowledge its unnerving reputation. The structure may appear peaceful in the sun, but those familiar with the stories warn of its haunted nights. Drivers and pedestrians passing nearby have occasionally glimpsed fleeting shadows or seen lights on the rails further, reinforcing the belief that the Licking River Railroad Bridge is more than just an abandoned crossing. It is a site where the past persists, visible and audible to those willing to notice. The Licking River Railroad Bridge is more than a forgotten relic of Ohio's railroad history. Ghostly trains glide silently along empty tracks. Spectral passengers appear and vanish. Shadows flit across the structure, and anguished screams echo across the valley. Visitors who dare to step onto the bridge after dark confront a haunting that blends history, memory, and the supernatural into an experience both terrifying and unforgettable. For anyone crossing the bridge under the cover of night, the rails are never empty, and the lingering presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to reveal itself in unexpected and chilling ways. The Ohio River Railroad Bridge in Cincinnati, Ohio, stretches across the wide, dark waters of the Ohio River. Its steel girders and wooden ties standing as a testament to decades of industrial activity and rail travel. By day, it appears unremarkable, a structure of iron and timber quietly connecting the riverbanks, with the gentle current reflecting sunlight and the occasional passing boat disturbing the surface. Yet as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place of eerie phenomena. Locals and visitors alike report seeing ghostly figures moving along the tracks, hearing phantom train whistles echoing through the night, and feeling unseen forces nudging them toward the edge. The Ohio River Railroad Bridge has become a focal point for those drawn to haunted locations, where history and the supernatural seem to intertwine. The most commonly reported phenomenon is the appearance of ghostly figures. Witnesses describe human-shaped shadows pacing along the tracks, pausing to glance at passersby, or standing motionless as if waiting for a train that never comes. Some figures appear dressed in old-fashioned clothing, reminiscent of railroad workers from decades past, while others are vague, flickering in and out of visibility. When approached, these figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints or signs of their presence. Many who encounter them report a sudden, unsettling feeling of being watched, as if the bridge itself is aware of their intrusion. The figures are not always malevolent, but their sudden appearances and disappearances create a profound sense of unease. Phantom trains are another frequent occurrence. Witnesses describe the unmistakable whistle of a locomotive, followed by the metallic clanging of wheels against rails and the distant rumble of a train crossing the bridge. These phantom trains often appear without headlights or crew, moving silently along the tracks before vanishing as suddenly as they appeared. Some visitors report feeling vibrations beneath their feet, as though a massive weight is passing over the bridge, even though the rails remain empty. Others hear the squeal of brakes or the hiss of steam, only to find no train in sight. The sounds are so realistic that many initially believe a train is approaching, only to realize that no tracks have borne a vehicle for years. Unseen forces are another hallmark of the bridge's haunting. Some describe a sudden loss of balance when walking near the rails, a sense of being drawn toward the edge, or an almost magnetic pull that cannot be explained. These experiences, combined with the spectral figures and phantom trains, create an immersive and terrifying environment where every step feels uncertain and every shadow carries potential danger. One memorable account comes from a local named Henry, who ventured onto the bridge on a chilly November night. He had crossed the Ohio River countless times by car, but this was his first time walking the old railroad span. As he reached the center, he heard the long, mournful whistle of a train in the distance, followed by the rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails. A shadowy figure appeared nearby, pacing along the track, and Henry felt a sudden push against his back that made him stumble. Heart pounding, he turned to see the figure vanish into the darkness, leaving only the echoing sound of the phantom train. The wind carried faint whispers and the chilling scent of iron and oil, as if the bridge itself were replaying moments from a bygone era. The haunting of the Ohio River Railroad Bridge is deeply connected to its history. Constructed during the height of Cincinnati's industrial growth, the bridge carried countless freight and passenger trains across the river. Accidents, derailments, and fatal falls were not uncommon, leaving behind stories of tragedy that locals say continue to manifest in spectral form. Railroad workers, travelers, and even pedestrians who met untimely ends on or near the bridge are believed to linger as spirits appearing to the living as shadowy figures sounding phantom whistles or influencing the environment in subtle but unsettling ways. Visitors often experience multiple phenomena at once. Some report seeing ghostly figures while hearing the phantom whistle of a train, feeling sudden nudges or pressure, and noticing chilling drafts moving along the bridge. The layering of these occurrences creates a haunting that is both immersive and disorienting, engaging sight, sound, and touch simultaneously. The bridge becomes a place where the living confront the lingering echoes of the past, where time and reality seem to collapse into a liminal space between life and death. Even during daylight, the Ohio River Railroad Bridge carries an air of unease. While it may appear calm and unremarkable under the sun, locals warn that the haunting is most potent at night. Occasional glimpses of shadows, the distant sound of phantom trains, or the sudden feeling of being nudged along the span remind passersby that the bridge is more than a simple crossing. It is a threshold, a place where history and the supernatural converge, and where the restless energy of the past refuses to remain silent. The Ohio River Railroad Bridge is more than steel and timber spanning the river. Phantom trains whistle across the rails, shadowy figures pace silently, chilling drafts sweep the bridge, and unseen forces push visitors toward the edge. Witnesses report footsteps, whispers, and the faint sensation of unseen presences accompanying these apparitions. Anyone crossing the bridge after dark confronts a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into a vivid and immersive experience. The rails are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past linger silently in the darkness, waiting to make themselves known to those who dare to cross. The Muskingum River Railroad Bridge in Zanesville, Ohio, arches over the dark waters of the Muskingum River. a relic of a time when railroads formed the backbone of the region's commerce and transportation. By day, the bridge appears quiet and unremarkable, its steel framework and weathered wooden ties blending into the riverside landscape. The water flows lazily below, reflecting the lattice of beams above, and the surrounding trees sway gently in the breeze, giving the area a serene appearance. But as darkness falls, the bridge transforms into a place of unease and mystery. Phantom figures appear near the old tracks, sudden chills grip visitors. Eerie whispers float across the structure, and the unmistakable sound of metal bending beneath unseen weight sends shivers down the spine. The Muskingum River Railroad Bridge has become a focal point for those drawn to the unexplained. A haunting site where history, tragedy, and the supernatural intersect. Shadowy figures are the most frequently reported phenomenon. Witnesses describe human-shaped silhouettes walking along the rails or standing motionless among the steel beams. Some appear dressed in clothing from decades past, resembling railroad workers or travelers from a bygone era. Others are indistinct, shifting in and out of view like smoke caught in the moonlight. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints, no evidence of their presence, except for the lingering sense that they have been watching. Many visitors report a sudden tightening in the chest or a feeling of being observed, as though the bridge itself retains the memory of those who once walked its ties and now manifests it in spectral form. Sudden chills often accompany sightings of these figures. Visitors describe an abrupt drop in temperature, sometimes accompanied by a cold draft that sweeps across the bridge without warning. Even on mild nights, the air can become icy and oppressive, as if the bridge exerts its own will over anyone daring to step onto it. Some report that the chills intensify when a figure appears nearby or when the sounds of metal bending or whispered voices begin. This physical manifestation of the haunting makes the experience more than visual or auditory. It becomes an immersive encounter that leaves the body and mind on edge. Eerie whispers are another hallmark of the bridge's haunted reputation. Witnesses describe faint, unintelligible murmurs that seem to drift on the wind or resonate from the beams themselves. At times, the whispers appear to form words, often fragmentary or garbled, suggesting warnings, pleas, or unfinished messages from the past. Other times, the voices remain indecipherable, leaving a lingering sense of unease and dread. The sound of metal bending is among the most unnerving phenomena reported. Visitors describe hearing the unmistakable groan and strain of steel, as if a train or a heavy load were pressing down on the bridge, yet no one is present. The creaking and bending sounds vary in intensity, from a subtle, almost imperceptible groan to a thunderous echo that reverberates through the entire structure. Some witnesses believe the sounds are connected to past accidents, structural failures, or even the footsteps of ghostly railroad workers replaying their final moments. Others interpret the noises as manifestations of residual energy, the bridge itself acting as a conduit for the memories and tragedies that occurred over its long history. One memorable account comes from a man named Robert, who ventured onto the bridge one late autumn night. He had hoped to photograph the moonlight reflecting on the Muskingum River, unaware of the bridge's dark reputation. As he stepped onto the ties, he noticed a shadow moving along the far rails. The figure appeared human, pacing slowly, then pausing to glance in his direction. Suddenly, a cold draft swept across the bridge, and Robert felt a tightening in his chest. At the same moment, the steel beams emitted a low, groaning sound, as if bending under the weight of an unseen presence. Panicked, he turned to run, but the figure vanished, leaving only silence, the chill lingering, and a faint echo of whispers that seemed to follow him as he descended from the bridge. The haunting of the Muskingum River Railroad Bridge is deeply tied to its history. The bridge once carried heavy freight and passenger trains across the river, and accidents were not uncommon. Workers fell from the structure, trains derailed, and collisions claimed lives over the decades. Many believe that the shadowy figures, whispers, and bending metal sounds are residual energy, echoes of these past events replaying for anyone who ventures onto the bridge at night. The bridge is seen not merely as steel and wood, but as a living memory, a structure where the past refuses to rest and interacts with the present in subtle and sometimes terrifying ways. Visitors often report layered experiences where multiple phenomena occur simultaneously. A group crossing the bridge may see a shadow pacing along the tracks, hear the metallic groan of bending steel, feel a sudden icy draft, and detect whispers drifting through the air all at once. These combined occurrences create a fully immersive haunting, affecting sight, hearing, and the physical senses. The bridge becomes a place where time seems to collapse, where the living can momentarily experience the presence of the departed, and where the atmosphere is charged with residual energy from decades of history. Even in daylight, the Muskingum River Railroad Bridge maintains an aura of unease. While it may seem tranquil and ordinary under the sun, those familiar with its stories warn that the night holds a different reality. Local residents passing nearby occasionally glimpse shadowy figures on the rails, hear distant groaning of metal, or sense a cold presence, reinforcing the idea that the bridge is more than a physical structure. It is a liminal space, a crossing point, not just over the river, but between the present and the echoes of a haunted past. The Muskingum River Railroad Bridge is more than an abandoned crossing. Phantom figures pace the old rails, chilling drafts sweep across its span. Eerie whispers float through the air, and the sound of metal bending beneath unseen weight reverberates through the structure. Visitors who dare to step onto the bridge at night confront a haunting that blends history, memory, and the supernatural into an immersive experience. For anyone crossing the Muskingum River Railroad Bridge under the cover of darkness, the rails are never empty, and the lingering presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to make itself known. The Great Miami River Railroad Bridge in Dayton, Ohio, stretches across the wide, slow-moving waters of the river, its steel and timber frame, a relic of the city's industrial past. By day, the bridge seems ordinary, a quiet testament to the era of trains that once connected Dayton to surrounding towns and cities. Sunlight reflects off the metal beams and wooden ties, and the gentle flow of the river below creates an almost serene scene. But as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place of eerie activity. Visitors report hearing the screams of the unseen, the sounds of phantom trains racing along the empty tracks, shadowy figures gliding silently across the rails, and, in some cases, the unsettling sight of glowing eyes staring from the darkness. The Great Miami River Railroad Bridge has become one of Dayton's most haunted locations, drawing those curious about the supernatural, as well as those seeking a brush with fear. The most commonly reported phenomena are the screams that echo across the river valley. Visitors describe anguished cries, sometimes distant and mournful, sometimes sharp and piercing, that seem to originate from nowhere, yet carry across the span of the bridge. These screams vary in intensity and character, often coinciding with sightings of shadowy figures or the approach of phantom train sounds. Many speculate that the cries are residual echoes of tragic events that occurred during the bridge's operational years, when accidents, derailments, and workplace fatalities were not uncommon. The cries are described as chilling, capable of freezing even the most confident visitor in place, as if the bridge itself were speaking through the voices of the past. Phantom train sounds are another frequent occurrence. Witnesses report the unmistakable rumble of locomotives approaching along the tracks, the metallic clanging of wheels striking rails, and the vibrations that resonate through the bridge's structure. These sounds often start faintly in the distance, growing louder as if a train is speeding toward the observer, only to vanish suddenly, leaving the rails empty and silent. Some describe feeling the vibrations beneath their feet as if the bridge were carrying an invisible load, and others report that the sounds sometimes overlap with the ghostly screams or whispers that fill the night air. For those who experience it, the auditory illusion is so convincing that it becomes impossible to ignore the sensation that the bridge is alive with unseen activity. Shadowy figures are a hallmark of the haunting. Witnesses describe dark, human-shaped forms gliding along the rails, pacing slowly or standing motionless, observing the living who dare cross the bridge. Some figures are faint and indistinct, while others appear more defined, occasionally dressed in old-fashioned clothing reminiscent of railroad workers or travelers from the bridge's past. When approached, these figures vanish instantly, leaving the witness questioning their own senses. Many who encounter them report a sudden feeling of being watched or followed, as if the shadows carry a consciousness of their own, tied to the history of the bridge and those who once walked its beams. In addition to figures and phantom sounds, some visitors report seeing glowing eyes peering from the darkness. These eyes are often described as small, intense points of light, sometimes red, sometimes amber, staring from the shadows along the bridge or the surrounding riverbanks. Observers say the eyes follow their movements, appearing to watch their every step, only to vanish when directly approached. This phenomenon adds a deeply unsettling dimension to the haunting, suggesting that some presences on the bridge are not merely echoes of humans, but may carry a more otherworldly essence. One particularly vivid account comes from a man named James, who ventured onto the bridge late one October night. He had come to photograph the reflection of city lights on the river, unaware of the bridge's ominous reputation. As he reached the center, he heard the rumble of a train approaching. Heart racing, he turned to see shadowy figures gliding along the rails. A cold wind swept across the bridge, carrying a faint, distant scream that seemed to emanate from beneath the ties. Suddenly, he caught the glimmer of two small, glowing eyes staring from the far side of the bridge. James froze, unable to look away, until the figures and the eyes vanished, leaving only the sound of his own rapid breathing and the whisper of the wind across the river. The history of the Great Miami River Railroad Bridge provides context for these chilling experiences. Built during a period when rail travel was essential to Dayton's economy, the bridge witnessed countless trains crossing its span. Accidents, mechanical failures, and workplace fatalities were common, leaving an imprint of tragedy that some believe continues to manifest in spectral form. The bridge is thought to serve as a conduit for these echoes, replaying moments of past suffering through sounds, apparitions, and physical sensations. Each haunting seems to layer over the last, creating a complex tapestry of supernatural occurrences that persist to this day. Many visitors report encounters where multiple phenomena overlap. One group walking across the bridge described hearing the roar of a phantom train, feeling the sudden chill of a cold draft, seeing shadowy figures pacing along the rails, and glimpsing glowing eyes in the darkness all at once. These layered experiences create a fully immersive haunting, engaging sight, sound, and the senses in ways that leave a lasting impression. The bridge becomes more than a physical structure. It transforms into an environment where the past, present, and supernatural converge. Even during daylight hours, the bridge maintains an aura of unease. While it may appear ordinary under the sun, those familiar with its stories warn of the night's hazards. Local residents report seeing fleeting shadows along the rails or hearing faint echoes of screams from the river valley, reinforcing the idea that the Great Miami River Railroad Bridge is more than steel and wood. It is a threshold between worlds, a place where history and the supernatural coexist. The Great Miami River Railroad Bridge is far more than an abandoned crossing. Phantom trains rumble along empty tracks, shadowy figures pace silently. Chilling drafts sweep the span, screams echo through the night, and glowing eyes pierce the darkness. Visitors who venture onto the bridge after dark encounter a haunting that blends history, memory, and the unexplained into a terrifying, immersive experience. For anyone crossing the Great Miami River Railroad Bridge at night, the rails are never empty, and the lingering presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to make itself known. The Scioto Junction Bridge in Portsmouth, Ohio, spans the Scioto River with a quiet, imposing presence that hints at the many decades of activity it once bore. By day, the bridge appears ordinary, a relic of a bygone era of steam and steel. Its rusted beams and weathered wooden ties, a testament to a time when trains carried passengers and freight across the region. The river flows steadily below, reflecting the muted sunlight, and the surrounding trees and industrial remnants provide a scenic yet desolate backdrop. But as night falls, the bridge becomes a place of unease, where the line between the living and the supernatural seems to blur. Phantom trains glide along abandoned tracks. Ghostly figures vanish when approached, and anguished screams are said to echo across the river, carried on the wind. Scioto Junction Bridge has earned a reputation as one of Portsmouth's most haunted locations, attracting those drawn to stories of the unexplained. The most common reports center on phantom trains. Witnesses describe locomotives appearing silently on the old tracks, sometimes moving slowly as though carefully crossing the bridge. Other times roaring toward observers at impossible speeds. The trains are often described in vivid detail, steam rising from the engines, the metallic clanging of wheels against the rails, and even the faint scent of smoke lingering in the night air. Yet, when anyone dares to approach, the trains vanish into thin air, leaving the rails empty and the witness questioning what they have just seen. The sounds and sights are so realistic that many who experience them feel the presence of the bridge itself. Alive with memories of a time when it carried countless travelers across the Scioto River. Alongside these phantom trains, visitors often report seeing ghostly figures walking along the bridge. These apparitions are typically human-shaped, dressed in clothing from decades past, and sometimes appear to be railroad workers, conductors, or passengers. They move slowly along the rails, pause to look at those observing them, and vanish suddenly when approached. Many witnesses describe a feeling of being watched or followed, even after the figures have disappeared. The combination of moving shadows and phantom trains creates an unsettling sensation, as if the past is replaying itself in fragmented glimpses, visible only to those daring enough to explore the bridge after dark. Screams carried by the wind are another hallmark of the Scioto Junction Bridge haunting. Visitors report hearing anguished cries, sometimes distant and mournful, sometimes sharp and sudden, echoing across the river and bouncing off the surrounding valley walls. The sounds appear to originate from no discernible source, sometimes coinciding with the appearance of a phantom train or the sighting of a shadowy figure. Some speculate that the screams are residual echoes of past accidents, falls from the bridge, or tragic events that occurred along the railroad. Others believe they are active manifestations, a warning from spirits who remain tethered to the bridge, unable to leave their final place of crossing. These sounds are often amplified by the open span of the river valley, making them impossible to ignore and heightening the bridge's eerie atmosphere. Many visitors describe physical sensations accompanying these spectral encounters. Sudden cold drafts sweep across the bridge, even on warm nights, chilling the skin and creating a sense of presence that cannot be explained. Some report a tightening in the chest or an almost palpable pressure, as if the bridge itself is aware of their intrusion. Others feel tingling sensations or an inexplicable shiver running up their spine when a phantom train passes or a shadowy figure appears. These physical manifestations make the haunting of the Scioto Junction Bridge an immersive experience, engaging sight, sound, and touch, leaving visitors with memories that linger long after they leave the site. One particularly vivid account comes from a man named Ethan, who visited the bridge in late November. He had come to photograph the river under a crescent moon, unaware of the bridge's dark reputation. As he stepped onto the old rails, he noticed a faint outline of a train in the distance, moving silently toward him. At the same time, a shadowy figure appeared near the center of the bridge, pacing slowly along the tracks. Ethan felt a sudden chill and heard the unmistakable creak of metal beneath the phantom train, as if it bore a weight no longer visible. Then, a scream pierced the night, echoing across the river valley and freezing him in place. When he mustered the courage to move closer, both the train and the figure had vanished, leaving only the cold night air and the quiet ripple of the river below. The history of the Scioto Junction Bridge sheds light on these mysterious experiences. Built during a period when railroads were crucial to the region, the bridge witnessed countless trains crossing its span, along with accidents, derailments, and the occasional fatal fall. Local lore suggests that those who died on or near the bridge remained tethered to the site, their presence manifesting as phantom trains, ghostly figures, and anguished screams. Over the years, countless visitors have recounted similar experiences, reinforcing the belief that the bridge is a place where the past refuses to rest, replaying its tragedies for anyone willing to witness them. Many encounters involve multiple phenomena simultaneously. Groups crossing the bridge at night have reported seeing phantom trains, shadowy figures, feeling cold drafts, and hearing screams all at once. These layered experiences create an immersive haunting, engaging multiple senses and leaving a profound impression. The bridge becomes not just a physical crossing over the river, but a corridor where history, memory, and the supernatural intersect, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and unseen presence. Even in daylight, the Scioto Junction Bridge retains an air of unease. While it may appear peaceful under the sun, locals warn that the haunting is most pronounced after dark. Passers-by occasionally glimpse fleeting shadows on the rails, hear faint echoes of phantom trains, or detect the chill of a cold draft moving across the bridge, confirming that the site is more than an abandoned structure. It is a threshold between the living and the lingering spirits of the past. The Scioto Junction Bridge is more than steel and wood spanning the river. Phantom trains glide silently along the tracks, shadowy figures move across the rails, chilling drafts sweep the span, and anguished screams echo through the night. Visitors who venture onto the bridge after dark encounter a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into an immersive, unforgettable experience. For anyone crossing the Scioto Junction Bridge at night, the tracks are never empty, and the lingering presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to reveal itself in chilling ways. The Maumee River Railroad Bridge in Toledo, Ohio, stretches across the dark waters of the Maumee River, a silent witness to decades of rail traffic and the passage of countless travelers. By day, it appears ordinary, a relic of the industrial age, with rusted steel beams, weathered wooden ties, and the steady flow of the river below, reflecting sunlight. The surrounding landscape is a mixture of urban decay and riverside vegetation, giving the area an almost tranquil appearance. Yet, as night falls, the bridge becomes a place of chilling activity. Visitors report hearing footsteps and screams echoing across the water, shadowy shapes moving silently along the rails, and a sense of presence that defies explanation. The Maumee River Railroad Bridge has earned a reputation as one of Toledo's most haunted locations, a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge. The most commonly reported phenomenon is the sound of footsteps. Visitors describe the unmistakable rhythm of someone walking along the wooden ties or metal beams. Often accompanied by a sense of being followed, the footsteps can be heavy and deliberate, as though an unseen worker is crossing the bridge, or soft and fleeting, disappearing as quickly as they appear. In many cases, the footsteps continue even when the bridge is completely empty, creating a sense of isolation and dread. Some witnesses report hearing footsteps approaching from behind, only for the sound to stop abruptly when they turn to look. Others describe the sound of multiple people walking in unison, echoing across the steel structure as if a group of spirits is replaying a moment from the bridge's past. Screams are another frequent occurrence. Visitors report anguished cries, sometimes distant and mournful, other times sudden and piercing, echoing across the river and resonating through the bridge's framework. The screams are often heard in conjunction with the appearance of shadowy figures or footsteps, adding an extra layer of terror. Many speculate that the sounds are the residual energy of past accidents, falls from the bridge, or tragic events that occurred during the years when trains regularly crossed the span. Others believe the screams are active warnings, attempts by spirits to communicate with the living, urging them to leave the bridge or recognize the dangers that lie hidden in the night. Shadowy figures are a hallmark of the bridge's haunting. Witnesses describe dark, human-shaped forms flitting across the rails, pacing slowly, or standing motionless as if observing those who dared to cross. Some figures appear dressed in old-fashioned clothing reminiscent of railroad workers, while others are indistinct, flickering in and out of sight. When approached, the shapes vanish instantly, leaving no footprints or evidence behind. Many who witness these figures report a sudden feeling of being watched or followed, a sensation that persists even after leaving the bridge. The combination of ghostly movement and auditory phenomena creates an immersive experience, making the bridge feel alive with the memories of those who once walked its ties. Physical sensations often accompany these encounters. Visitors report sudden chills, even on warm nights, as if a cold presence is moving alongside them. Some describe a tightening in the chest or an almost tangible pressure in the air, heightening their sense of fear. Tingling sensations, goosebumps, and a prickling along the skin are also commonly reported when footsteps or shadowy figures are nearby. These sensations reinforce the bridge's reputation as a place where the boundary between the living and the spectral world becomes blurred. One memorable account comes from a woman named Sarah, who visited the bridge late one October evening. She had hoped to photograph the reflections of city lights on the river below, unaware of the bridge's haunting history. As she stepped onto the rails, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching from behind. Turning quickly, she saw a dark figure pacing along the far side of the bridge. A chill swept over her as the figure stopped and seemed to watch her. Then, a scream echoed from somewhere beneath the steel beams, bouncing off the river and sending her heart racing. When she cautiously advanced, the figure vanished, leaving only silence, the cold air, and the lingering echo of the scream. The history of the Maumee River Railroad Bridge provides context for these unsettling phenomena. Built during a time when rail travel was essential to Toledo's growth, the bridge saw countless trains carrying both passengers and freight. Accidents were not uncommon, and many workers lost their lives while constructing or maintaining the bridge, or in collisions and derailments on the tracks. Locals believe that these tragedies left an imprint on the structure, manifesting as shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, and screams that persist to this day. The bridge acts as a conduit for these lingering energies, replaying moments of past suffering and creating an atmosphere of tension and fear for anyone crossing after dark. Many visitors report overlapping experiences where multiple phenomena occur simultaneously. A single night might involve seeing a shadowy figure, hearing footsteps, feeling a sudden chill, and hearing distant screams all at once. These layered encounters create a fully immersive haunting, engaging multiple senses and leaving a lasting impression on those who experience it. The bridge becomes more than a physical crossing. It becomes a place where the past is tangible, and where visitors confront echoes of history in real time. Even during the day, the bridge retains an air of unease. While it may appear calm and ordinary under sunlight, those familiar with its stories warn that the haunting is most potent after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadows or the faint sound of footsteps remind passersby that the Maumee River Railroad Bridge is more than a structure. It is a threshold between the living and the lingering spirits of the past. The Maumee River Railroad Bridge is far more than an abandoned crossing. Shadowy figures pace along the rails, phantom footsteps echo through the structure, chilling drafts sweep across the bridge, and screams carry across the river, haunting anyone who dares to venture there after dark. Visitors encounter a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into a vivid, immersive experience. For those who cross the Maumee River Railroad Bridge at night, the tracks are never empty, and the presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to make itself known. The Alentany Junction Bridge in Columbus, Ohio, spans the quiet stretch of the Alentany River with a steel and timber structure that has weathered decades of history. By day, it appears ordinary, a relic of a bygone railroad era, its beams rusted and worn, the wooden ties cracked and uneven. The river flows steadily beneath, reflecting the sunlight, and the surrounding foliage gives the area a peaceful, if slightly neglected, appearance. But as night descends, the bridge takes on an entirely different character. Visitors report seeing shadowy figures moving among the rails, hearing screams echoing from the river below, and even feeling icy hands brushing past them as they cross. The Alentany Junction Bridge has earned a reputation as one of Columbus's most haunted locations, drawing those fascinated by the paranormal and the stories of restless spirits lingering where tragedy once struck. The shadowy figures are the most commonly reported phenomenon. Witnesses describe human-shaped apparitions moving along the rails, sometimes pacing slowly, sometimes pausing as though observing those crossing the bridge. Some figures are faint and indistinct, almost blending with the night, while others appear more defined, resembling railroad workers or travelers from the early 20th century. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints or trace of their presence. Many visitors report an immediate feeling of being watched or followed, even after the figures disappear, as if the bridge itself is alive with the lingering consciousness of those long gone. The figures do not appear to harm anyone, yet their sudden appearances and eerie movements leave a lasting impression of unease. Screams from the river below are another hallmark of the bridge's haunting. Visitors have reported hearing anguished cries, sometimes distant and mournful, sometimes sharp and terrifying, echoing up from the river valley and reverberating across the bridge. The source of these screams is never visible, yet they seem to be tied to moments of past tragedy. Many believe they are the echoes of accidents, falls from the bridge, derailments, or mishaps involving workers who once maintained the tracks. Others suspect that the sounds are active expressions of the spirits themselves, warnings or calls for attention from those who remain tethered to the location. The screams often coincide with sightings of shadowy figures or sudden chills, amplifying the sense of danger and dread. Physical sensations often accompany these spectral encounters. Many visitors report feeling icy hands brush past them as they walk along the rails, a cold, fleeting touch that leaves goosebumps and a heightened sense of fear. Others describe sudden chills that seem to originate from nowhere, or an oppressive weight in the air that presses down on the chest, making each step across the bridge feel uncertain. These sensations are particularly strong near the center of the span, where the shadowy figures and screams are most frequently reported. Some even report the inexplicable sensation of being nudged, as if unseen forces are subtly influencing their movements, guiding them toward or away from certain areas. One particularly vivid encounter comes from a man named David, who visited the bridge on a foggy October night. He had hoped to photograph the reflection of the moonlight on the Olentany River, unaware of the bridge's haunted reputation. As he stepped onto the rails, he noticed the faint outline of a figure moving slowly along the far side. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed from below, bouncing off the steel beams and the water's surface. David felt a cold hand brush against his shoulder, though no one was nearby. When he turned toward the shadow, it vanished instantly, leaving him standing alone on the bridge, trembling, with only the sound of the river flowing beneath him. The history of the Olentany Junction Bridge helps explain the eerie experiences reported by visitors. Constructed during a time when railroads were essential to Columbus's development, the bridge carried countless trains and workers over the river. Accidents, derailments, and falls were tragically common, leaving behind stories of death and misfortune. Local lore suggests that those who perished near or on the bridge remained tied to the structure, their presence manifesting as shadowy figures, screams, and cold touches. The bridge seems to act as a conduit for these lingering energies, replaying moments of past suffering and creating an atmosphere thick with tension for anyone crossing at night. Many encounters involve multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. Groups visiting the bridge at night often report seeing a shadowy figure while hearing screams echo from below, feeling sudden cold drafts or a hand brush past, and sensing the oppressive weight of an unseen presence. These overlapping experiences create a fully immersive haunting, engaging multiple senses and leaving visitors with a deep, unsettling impression of the bridge's supernatural activity. The Olentany Junction Bridge becomes more than a physical crossing. It becomes a liminal space where the past and present converge, where history, memory, and spectral energy intersect. Even during the day, the bridge carries an aura of unease, while sunlight may reveal a calm and abandoned structure. Those familiar with the haunting warn that the bridge is most active after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadows or faint sounds of distant screaming remind visitors that the bridge is more than a simple river crossing. It is a threshold where history and the supernatural meet, where restless spirits linger and replay fragments of the past for anyone willing or daring enough to witness them. The Olentany Junction Bridge is far more than steel and timber spanning the river. Shadowy figures pace silently along the rails. Anguished screams echo from the river below. Cold drafts and unseen hands brush against the living, and an oppressive presence seems to watch every movement. Visitors who cross the bridge at night encounter a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into an immersive, unforgettable experience. For anyone venturing onto the Olentini Junction Bridge after dark, the rails are never empty, and the lingering presence of the past waits silently in the shadows, ready to reveal itself to the unwary. The Wabash Railroad Bridge in Hamilton County, Ohio, stretches across the river with a rusted steel frame and weathered wooden ties, standing as a silent witness to decades of train traffic and human history. By day, the bridge looks like a relic of a bygone era, its beams corroded and its tracks unused for years, blending into the riverside landscape. But as darkness falls, the bridge transforms into a place of chilling activity. Visitors report seeing phantom figures walking along the rails at night, hearing the creaking of metal where no trains pass, and loud, unexplained screams that echo across the river and vanish as suddenly as they appear. The Wabash Railroad Bridge has earned a reputation as one of Hamilton County's most haunted locations, attracting those drawn to the mysterious and the unexplained. Some figures appear to be dressed in clothing reminiscent of early 20th century railroad workers, while others are vague shapes, flickering in and out of visibility. When approached, these figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints or trace of their presence. Visitors often describe a sudden, unsettling feeling of being watched or followed, even after the figures disappear. The bridge seems to retain the memory of those who once walked its rails, replaying their movements for anyone daring enough to be present at night. Unexplained sounds accompany the visual phenomena, amplifying the bridge's eerie reputation. Witnesses report hearing metal creaking under invisible weights, the rails groaning as if a train is approaching, yet no train is ever seen. The sounds are sometimes rhythmic, echoing the movement of a phantom locomotive, other times sharp and jarring, startling anyone crossing the bridge. Many describe the noise as coming from multiple directions simultaneously, making it impossible to discern its source. It creates an immersive auditory experience, where every creak or clang seems purposeful, as if the bridge itself is alive with lingering energy from decades of use and tragedy. Sudden loud screams are another hallmark of the bridge's haunting. Visitors often report hearing anguished cries, sometimes distant and fading, sometimes loud and immediate, reverberating across the river and through the steel beams. The screams appear without warning and vanish just as quickly, leaving an unsettling silence in their wake. Some speculate these are echoes of past accidents, injuries, or deaths that occurred on the bridge or in nearby railroad yards. The combination of visual apparitions, metallic sounds, and piercing screams creates a deeply immersive haunting that engages multiple senses. Physical sensations often accompany these experiences. Visitors describe sudden chills that seem to sweep through their bodies, even on warm nights. Some report the sensation of an invisible hand brushing against them or a subtle pressure on their shoulders or back, as if unseen forces are guiding or warning them. One notable encounter comes from a man named Thomas, who visited the bridge on a foggy evening in late October. He had heard local stories, but wanted to see the bridge for himself. As he stepped onto the rails, he heard the faint creak of metal beneath his feet, followed by the distinct sound of additional weight, though no one else was present. He looked up to see a shadowy figure pacing along the far side of the bridge, the shape indistinct but undeniably human. Suddenly, A loud, blood-curdling scream echoed from beneath the bridge, bouncing off the river and the surrounding trees. Thomas felt a cold draft sweep across his back and the sensation of a hand brushing past his shoulder. When he cautiously turned to approach the figure, it vanished, leaving him alone on the bridge, trembling, with only the echo of the scream lingering in the night air. The haunting of the Wabash Railroad Bridge is deeply tied to its history. Constructed during a period of industrial expansion, the bridge once carried numerous freight and passenger trains, facilitating the transport of goods and people across Hamilton County. The bridge also witnessed numerous accidents, derailments, and even fatal falls, leaving a tragic imprint on its structure. Local lore suggests that those who perished on or near the bridge remained tethered to it, their presence manifesting in phantom figures, metallic sounds, and sudden screams. The bridge appears to act as a conduit for these lingering energies, replaying fragments of the past and creating a haunting experience for anyone crossing it after dark. Visitors often report overlapping phenomena, where multiple spectral events occur simultaneously. A single night might involve seeing a shadowy figure, hearing the creak of rails under unseen weight, feeling a sudden chill or brush of a hand, and hearing a piercing scream. The layering of these experiences creates a haunting that is both immersive and disorienting, engaging sight, sound, and touch simultaneously. The bridge becomes more than a physical structure. It becomes a corridor where the past and present collide, and where visitors confront echoes of tragedy that refuse to rest. Even during daylight, the Wabash Railroad Bridge retains an air of unease. While it may appear calm and abandoned under sunlight, locals warn that its haunting is most active after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, faint echoes of metal creaking, or the sudden sensation of a cold presence remind passersby that the bridge is not merely an empty structure. It is a threshold between the living and the lingering spirits of the past. The Wabash Railroad Bridge is far more than steel and wood spanning the river. Phantom figures walk the rails silently. The metal creaks under invisible weight. Anguished screams pierce the night, and unseen forces brush against visitors, leaving them chilled and unnerved. Crossing the bridge after dark offers a haunting experience that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into an immersive encounter. The rails are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past linger silently in the darkness, waiting to make themselves known to those who dare to enter their domain. The Sandusky River Railroad Bridge in Sandusky County, Ohio, spans the river with a weathered steel framework and time-worn wooden ties, standing as a silent relic of an era when trains were the lifeblood of the region. By day, it seems unremarkable, rusted beams stretching across the water, surrounded by overgrown vegetation, the river flowing calmly beneath. But as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place steeped in the unexplained. Visitors report ghostly shapes appearing on the abandoned tracks, distant cries echoing across the river, and whispering voices that seem to follow them as they cross. The Sandusky River Railroad Bridge has earned a reputation as one of the area's most haunted sites, drawing thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts who hope to glimpse the lingering spirits of its dark past. The most frequently reported phenomena are the ghostly shapes that appear on the rails. Witnesses describe human-shaped apparitions pacing along the tracks, sometimes stopping to glance toward anyone crossing the bridge, sometimes moving in groups as if engaged in long-forgotten tasks. Some shapes appear to wear clothing reminiscent of railroad workers from decades past, while others are indistinct, flickering in and out of sight like shadows caught between worlds. When approached, these figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints or physical evidence of their presence. Many visitors report an immediate sense of unease, feeling watched or followed even after the figures have disappeared. The bridge seems to hold onto the memory of those who once walked its spans, replaying fragments of their lives for anyone daring to cross after dark. Distant cries are another hallmark of the bridge's haunting. Witnesses report hearing mournful or anguished screams that seem to rise from the river below, carried across the structure by the night air. Sometimes the cries are faint and almost imperceptible, like a whisper carried on the wind. Other times, they are sudden and piercing, echoing off the steel beams and startling anyone nearby. Many speculate that these sounds are echoes of past accidents, falls from the bridge, derailments, or injuries suffered by railroad workers during the bridge's years of active use. Others believe the cries are the voices of spirits attempting to communicate, reliving their final moments, or warning the living of dangers invisible to the human eye. Whispering voices often accompany these visual and auditory phenomena. Visitors describe faint murmurs that seem to follow them across the bridge, growing slightly louder when they pause or look back. The whispers are usually indecipherable, soft enough to be mistaken for the wind, yet they carry a distinct sense of intentionality, as though the unseen speakers are aware of the living intruders in their space. Some witnesses claim the voices echo snippets of past conversations, instructions, or warnings, adding a deeply unsettling human element to the haunting. The combination of ghostly figures, distant cries, and whispering voices creates a layered experience, engaging multiple senses and leaving a lasting impression on anyone who ventures onto the bridge at night. Physical sensations often accompany these encounters. Visitors report sudden chills that sweep across their bodies, even on warm nights, and some describe the feeling of a presence brushing past them or an unseen hand lightly touching their shoulder. Others experience a sense of pressure in the chest or a tingling along the spine, intensifying whenever ghostly figures or whispers appear. These sensations make the haunting feel tangible and immediate, reinforcing the impression that the bridge is a place where the barrier between the living and the dead is disturbingly thin. One memorable account comes from a woman named Elaine, who visited the bridge on a foggy autumn evening. She had heard local stories of hauntings, but wanted to see the bridge for herself. As she stepped onto the tracks, she noticed a dark figure moving along the far side, pacing slowly as though performing a task. The sound of distant cries reached her ears, echoing off the steel beams and blending with the whispering of unseen voices. Elaine felt a cold draft brush against her arm, and she instinctively turned, but the figure had vanished. She paused, listening to the lingering cries and murmurs, her heart pounding, before hastily retreating from the bridge. The memory of the cold touch, the voices, and the spectral figure stayed with her long after she left. The haunting of the Sandusky River Railroad Bridge is closely tied to its history. Constructed during a period when railroads were vital to the region's industry and transportation, the bridge carried countless trains and workers across the river. Accidents, derailments, and fatal falls were tragically common, leaving behind a legacy of loss that locals believe continues to manifest in ghostly form. The bridge appears to act as a conduit for these lingering energies, replaying moments of past suffering and creating an atmosphere of tension and fear for anyone crossing it after dark. Many visitors report experiencing multiple phenomena simultaneously. One night might involve seeing a shadowy figure, hearing a distant scream, feeling a cold brush against the skin, and hearing whispering voices all occurring at once. These overlapping experiences create an immersive haunting, engaging sight, sound, and touch, leaving witnesses with a profound sense of the bridge's spectral presence. The Sandusky River Railroad Bridge becomes more than a physical structure. It becomes a threshold between the living and the lingering spirits of the past, where time seems to elapse and echoes of tragedy replay in real time. Even during daylight, the bridge retains an air of unease. While it may appear calm and abandoned, locals warn that its haunting is most potent after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, faint cries, or whispering voices serve as reminders that the bridge is more than a simple crossing. It is a place where the past refuses to remain silent, where history and the supernatural intersect, and where the restless energy of those long gone still lingers. The Sandusky River Railroad Bridge is far more than steel and timber spanning the river. Ghostly figures pace the tracks, distant cries echo across the water, whispering voices follow the living, and unseen presences brush past visitors, leaving them chilled and unsettled. Anyone venturing onto the bridge after dark encounters a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into an immersive experience. The tracks are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past wait silently in the darkness, ready to make themselves known to those who dare to cross. The Black Fork Railroad Bridge in Crawford County, Ohio, stretches across the Black Fork River with an aging steel and timber structure that has stood for decades. By day, it appears as a quiet relic of a bygone era, its rusted beams and weathered wooden ties blending into the surrounding forest and riverbank. Yet, as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place of unsettling activity. Visitors frequently report seeing ghostly figures along the tracks, hearing the distant sound of phantom trains, and experiencing chilling screams that echo across the river, making crossing the bridge after dark a truly terrifying experience. The Black Fork Railroad Bridge has become a focal point for those intrigued by the paranormal, drawing thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and locals curious about its eerie reputation. Shadowy figures are the most common reports from the bridge. Witnesses describe human-shaped apparitions appearing along the rails, often moving slowly, pacing as though performing tasks from decades past. Some figures seem dressed like railroad workers from the early 20th century, their outlines distinct yet blurry, while others appear as mere dark shapes, flickering in and out of sight. The unsettling detail in every account is how the figures vanish the instant someone tries to approach them. Walkers on the bridge report an immediate sense of being watched or followed even after the figures disappear, as if the presence lingers in the shadows. The bridge, it seems, holds the memories of countless workers, travelers, and perhaps even victims of accidents, replaying fragments of their lives for those daring enough to step onto the tracks at night. Phantom train noises accompany these sightings, heightening the sense of dread. Witnesses often describe the sound of an approaching locomotive, the distant whistle, the metallic screech of wheels on rails, and the rhythmic clatter of the tracks. These sounds appear to come from multiple directions and can seem alarmingly close, making it difficult to discern if a train is actually coming. Yet, when the source is investigated, the tracks are empty, and the bridge remains still. Some visitors report feeling vibrations beneath their feet, as if a heavy train had just passed, though no such vehicle is present. Others have heard the hiss of steam, the rattle of chains, and the pounding of unseen engines, all contributing to an immersive auditory haunting that feels terrifyingly real. Chilling screams are another hallmark of the Black Fork Railroad Bridge. Witnesses describe sudden, blood-curdling cries that seem to echo from the river below or from the surrounding forest. The screams often fade as quickly as they appear, leaving an oppressive silence that amplifies the tension. Many believe these are the echoes of past tragedies, falls from the bridge, railroad accidents, or mishaps among workers long gone. Others suggest the cries are active expressions of the spirits themselves, attempts to communicate or warn the living of dangers invisible to the human eye. The combination of spectral figures, phantom trains, and piercing screams creates a multidimensional haunting that engages sight, sound, and intuition, making the bridge a place of both fascination and fear. Physical sensations often accompany these supernatural experiences. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, chills that sweep through the body, and a feeling of heaviness in the chest when encountering the apparitions. Some describe the sensation of an unseen hand brushing past them or a subtle push against their back, as if the spirits are guiding or warning them. Others report tingling along their spine or goosebumps rising suddenly when approaching areas where figures or screams have been observed. These sensations make the haunting tangible, reinforcing the idea that the bridge is more than a simple structure. It is a place where the living and the spirits of the past intersect. One vivid encounter comes from a man named Samuel, who visited the bridge on a foggy November night. He had heard stories of the hauntings, but was determined to see for himself. As he stepped onto the tracks, he saw a shadowy figure pacing along the far side, dimly illuminated by the moonlight. The distant whistle of a phantom train pierced the night, followed by the metallic clatter of wheels on the rails. Suddenly, a chilling scream echoed from below, bouncing off the river and the bridge supports. Samuel felt a cold brush against his shoulder and spun around, only to find the figure vanished without a trace. The combination of sounds, sensations, and spectral presence left him shaken, and he hurried off the bridge, feeling the lingering weight of the unseen watchers all the way back to the shore. The haunting of the Black Fork Railroad Bridge is closely tied to its history. Built during a time when railroads were crucial to Crawford County's industry, the bridge carried countless trains and workers over the river. Accidents, derailments, and fatal falls were unfortunately common, leaving a legacy of loss that some believe has imprinted itself onto the bridge. Locals recount stories of workers who perished while maintaining the rails, travelers who fell victim to misfortune, and mysterious deaths that remain unexplained. The bridge seems to act as a vessel for these lingering energies, replaying fragments of the past in the form of apparitions, phantom sounds, and physical sensations for those who dare to cross it at night. Visitors often experience multiple phenomena at once. A single night may involve seeing a shadowy figure, hearing the metallic groan of phantom trains, feeling a sudden chill, and hearing a scream, all happening simultaneously. This layering of sensory experiences makes the haunting immersive and disorienting, leaving a lasting impression that few forget. The bridge becomes more than a pathway across the river. It transforms into a corridor between the living and the spirits of the past, where time and memory collapse into an eerie presence that lingers long after one leaves. Even during daylight hours, the bridge carries a quiet unease. While it may seem calm and abandoned, locals warn that its full spectral activity is reserved for nightfall. Occasional glimpses of figures or faint echoes of trains and screams remind passersby that the bridge is not simply an empty, unused structure. It is a liminal space where the memories of past tragedies remain vivid, and the spirits of those long gone continue to make themselves known. The Black Fork Railroad Bridge is more than steel and timber spanning the river. Phantom figures pace the rails, ghostly trains whistle in the night, chilling screams echo across the water, and unseen hands brush against visitors, leaving them unsettled. Anyone crossing after dark encounters a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into a fully immersive experience. The tracks are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past wait silently in the darkness, ready to make themselves known to anyone daring enough to step onto the bridge. The Olentangy Steel Bridge in Franklin County, Ohio, spans the Olentangy River with its towering steel framework and worn wooden ties, standing as a silent monument to decades of railroad history. By day, it appears unremarkably sturdy, utilitarian structure surrounded by trees and the flowing river, but as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place of supernatural activity. Visitors frequently report seeing phantom figures gliding silently along the rails, hearing distant screams echoing across the river, and sensing the rattling of rails under no apparent weight. The Olentangy Steel Bridge has become a magnet for those fascinated by the paranormal, drawing locals, thrill seekers, and ghost hunters who hope to experience the lingering spirits said to haunt its span. The most commonly reported phenomena on the bridge are the phantom figures. Witnesses describe human-shaped apparitions moving along the tracks with an eerie grace, sometimes pacing slowly, other times gliding without sound, as if weightless. Some figures appear to be dressed in the clothing of railroad workers from decades past, complete with hats and work jackets, while others are more ambiguous, shadowy forms that flicker in and out of existence. When approached, the figures vanish instantly, leaving no footprints or physical trace behind. Many visitors report a profound sense of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every movement along the rails. The bridge seems to hold the memories of those who once worked and traveled upon it, replaying fragments of the past for anyone daring enough to cross after dark. Unexplained auditory phenomena accompany these sightings. The rattling of rails is a frequent report, often occurring without any visible cause. Witnesses describe the sharp, metallic clatter of train tracks bending or vibrating under invisible weight, echoing along the steel framework and startling anyone on the bridge. The sounds vary from rhythmic clattering, like the passage of a ghostly train, to sudden, jarring bangs that seem to erupt from the structure itself. Visitors frequently report trying to locate the source, only to find the tracks empty, the bridge silent except for the occasional whisper of the wind. These auditory experiences create a palpable sense of tension, making every step along the rails feel uncertain. Chilling screams are another hallmark of the Alentany steel bridge's haunting. Witnesses describe sudden, piercing cries that seem to emanate from the river below or from deep within the steel girders. Sometimes the screams are distant and mournful, carrying across the water like echoes of tragedy. Other times, they are sharp and startling, cutting through the night air. Many believe these sounds are the echoes of past accidents, derailments, or falls from the bridge, memorializing the suffering of those who once worked or traveled here. Others suggest that the screams are the spirits themselves, actively trying to communicate with the living or warn them away from danger. Some describe the sensation of an unseen hand brushing against them or a light, invisible push, as if the spirits are guiding or warning them. Others experience tingling along their spine or goosebumps rising without cause. These physical manifestations reinforce the idea that the bridge is more than a static structure. It is a living conduit for the residual energy of those long gone. One particularly vivid encounter comes from a man named Michael, who visited the bridge on a foggy November night. He had heard stories of hauntings, but wanted to experience the bridge for himself. As he stepped onto the rails, he noticed a shadowy figure gliding along the far side, moving silently and deliberately. Suddenly, the metallic rattling of rails echoed beneath him, as if an unseen train were approaching. Then a piercing scream erupted, bouncing off the steel beams and carrying across the river. Michael felt a cold brush along his shoulder, and when he turned, the figure had vanished, leaving him alone on the bridge, heart racing, and the echo of the scream lingering in the foggy night. The haunting of the Alentany steel bridge is deeply tied to its history. Built during the height of railroad expansion in Franklin County, the bridge carried countless trains, workers, and travelers across the river. Accidents, derailments, and fatalities were unfortunately common, leaving a legacy of sorrow and tragedy. Locals believe that the spirits of those who perished remain tethered to the bridge, their presence manifesting in phantom figures, rail noises, and screams. The bridge seems to act as a vessel for these lingering energies, replaying fragments of the past and creating a tense, otherworldly experience for anyone crossing it after dark. Many visitors report experiencing multiple phenomena simultaneously. A single night might involve seeing a gliding figure, hearing rails rattle beneath invisible weight, feeling a cold brush or pressure, and hearing a scream, all occurring together. This layering of sensory experiences makes the haunting immersive and disorienting, leaving a lasting impression on those who witness it. The bridge becomes more than a crossing. It transforms into a corridor where the past and present intersect, where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge. Even during daylight, the bridge retains an unsettling presence. While it may appear calm and abandoned, locals caution that its full haunting is reserved for nightfall. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, the distant echo of rails, or the faintest scream remind passersby that the bridge is never truly empty. It is a liminal space where the memories of the past remain vivid, and the spirits of those long gone continue to linger. The tracks are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past wait silently in the darkness, ready to make themselves known to those who dare to walk among them. The Hocking Valley Railroad Bridge in Athens County, Ohio, spans the Hocking River with a combination of aged steel beams and weathered wooden ties, a silent monument to the golden age of railroads. By day, it appears as a relic, a structure blending into the surrounding forested landscape and the flowing river beneath. Yet, as night falls, the bridge transforms into a place of otherworldly activity. Visitors frequently report seeing shadowy forms moving along the rails, hearing faint voices and footsteps, and sometimes even chilling screams that seem to echo from long ago. The Hocking Valley Railroad Bridge has become a site of fascination and fear, drawing ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and locals eager to witness the lingering spirits said to haunt its span. Shadowy forms are the most commonly reported phenomenon on the bridge. Witnesses describe human-shaped apparitions pacing the rails, moving slowly or standing motionless as if performing tasks long forgotten. Some appear dressed in clothing reminiscent of railroad workers from the early 20th century, while others are indistinct, dark shapes that flicker in and out of existence. Many visitors note the unsettling detail that these figures vanish as soon as anyone attempts to approach them. The presence of these forms gives the bridge an almost sentient quality, as though it remembers the countless men and women who once worked and traveled along it. Those who cross after dark often report a deep sense of being watched, as if the bridge itself observes every step along its rails. Auditory phenomena frequently accompany these sightings. Visitors describe hearing faint voices, sometimes carrying snippets of conversation, laughter, or commands, echoing across the steel structure. Footsteps are another common experience, often heard pacing the length of the bridge, even when no one else is present. The rhythmic tapping of shoes on wooden ties, the scraping of metal, and the echoing thuds create a haunting soundtrack that amplifies the tension of anyone crossing. Occasionally, piercing screams erupt from nowhere, reverberating across the river and surrounding landscape. Many believe these sounds are echoes of past accidents, derailments, or injuries sustained by workers long ago, replaying in the air as a spectral reminder of tragedy. Physical sensations often accompany these encounters. Visitors frequently report sudden chills that sweep across the body, sometimes localized around the shoulders or back, as if an unseen presence is brushing against them. A conduit for spirits that continue to linger long after their mortal existence ended. One memorable account comes from a man named Daniel, who visited the bridge on a foggy October night. He had heard stories of hauntings, but wanted to experience the bridge firsthand. As he stepped onto the tracks, he saw a shadowy figure pacing slowly near the center of the span. The Hocking Valley Railroad Bridge's reputation for supernatural activity is closely tied to its history. Ghostly figures, mysterious voices, and phantom footsteps are thought to be the remnants of this past, replaying moments of suffering, labor, and finality for anyone crossing the bridge after dark. Visitors often report multiple phenomena occurring at the same time. The Paint Creek Railroad Bridge in Highland County, Ohio, spans the winding Paint Creek with a steel and wooden structure that has stood for decades, a relic of the railroad era. By day, it seems calm and unremarkable, its rusted beams blending into the surrounding forest and riverbank. But at night, the bridge transforms into a place steeped in mystery and the unexplained. Visitors frequently report seeing shadowy travelers near the rails, hearing phantom screams echoing across the water, and feeling sudden chilling drafts that seem to accompany any attempt to cross after dark. The Paint Creek Railroad Bridge has become a magnet for paranormal enthusiasts, thrill seekers, and locals drawn to its reputation as one of Highland County's most haunted structures. The most commonly reported sightings are the shadowy travelers that appear along the rails. Witnesses describe human-shaped figures moving along the tracks, pacing slowly, or standing motionless as though waiting for a train that will never arrive. Some figures seem dressed in clothing reminiscent of railroad workers from decades past, complete with caps and jackets, while others are indistinct shadows, their outlines flickering in and out of sight. One of the most unsettling aspects is that these figures vanish the instant anyone approaches. Many visitors report a lingering sense of being watched even after the apparitions disappear, as if the bridge itself is alive with the memories of those who once walked or worked there. Auditory phenomena are a frequent and unnerving aspect of the haunting. Visitors often report phantom screams echoing across the river, sometimes sharp and piercing, other times long, mournful cries that seem to come from a great distance. Some believe these are the echoes of accidents that occurred on the bridge over the decades, falls from the structure, railroad derailments, or tragic incidents involving workers. Others suggest the screams are attempts by restless spirits to communicate with the living or to warn intruders away from the danger of the bridge at night. These chilling sounds make each crossing an exercise in tension and caution, heightening the sense of dread that seems to envelop the bridge after dark. Strange cold drafts often accompany these visual and auditory experiences. Witnesses report sudden drops in temperature as they step onto the bridge, feeling chills that sweep through the body, even on otherwise warm nights. Some describe the sensation of an unseen presence brushing against them or a pressure on their shoulders or chest, making it feel as though the spirits are not only observing but interacting with the living. These physical sensations reinforce the idea that the bridge is more than a simple structure. It is a threshold between the living and the lingering energies of the past. One vivid account comes from a woman named Margaret, who visited the bridge on a foggy October evening. She had heard stories about the hauntings, but wanted to see for herself. As she stepped onto the tracks, she saw a shadowy figure pacing slowly near the center of the bridge. Suddenly, a long, mournful scream echoed across the creek, bouncing off the steel beams and surrounding trees. Margaret felt a cold brush along her shoulder, and when she turned to look, the figure had vanished without a trace. The combination of sight, sound, and sensation left her shaken, and she hurried off the bridge, the eerie atmosphere lingering in her mind long after she left the site. The haunting of the Paint Creek Railroad Bridge is closely tied to its history. Built during a time when railroads were essential to transportation and commerce in Highland County, the bridge carried countless trains and workers across the creek. Accidents were unfortunately common, and tragic incidents, falls, derailments, and fatal injuries left a legacy that some believe still lingers. The shadowy figures, phantom screams, and sudden chills reported by visitors are thought to be residual manifestations of these past tragedies, replaying on the bridge night after night for those brave enough to cross it. Visitors frequently report experiencing multiple phenomena at once. A single night on the bridge might involve seeing a shadowy figure gliding along the rails, hearing a distant scream, feeling a sudden cold draft, and sensing an unseen presence brushing past. These overlapping experiences create a fully immersive, haunting, engaging sight, sound, and touch simultaneously. The bridge becomes more than a physical crossing. It becomes a space where the past and present collide, where echoes of human lives long gone replay in the dark, and where the living confront the restless spirits that refuse to leave. Even during daylight, the bridge retains an unsettling presence. While it may appear calm and empty, locals caution that its true activity emerges only after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadowy travelers, the faint sound of screams, or a sudden chill serve as reminders that the bridge is never truly abandoned. It is a liminal space, a threshold where the memories of past tragedies remain vivid, and where the lingering presence of those who perished long ago continues to interact with the living. The Paint Creek Railroad Bridge is more than steel and timber spanning a creek. Shadowy travelers glide along the rails silently. Phantom screams echo across the water, and chilling drafts sweep through anyone attempting to cross. Visitors may feel unseen hands brush past them, hear footsteps with no source, and encounter apparitions that vanish as quickly as they appear. Anyone venturing onto the bridge after dark encounters a haunting that combines history, tragedy, and the unexplained into an immersive and unnerving experience. The rails are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past linger, silently watching, waiting, and making their presence known to anyone daring enough to tread among them. The Sandusky Bay Railroad Bridge in Sandusky, Ohio, stretches across the wide expanse of the bay, its steel framework standing as a silent monument to the age of railroads. By day, the bridge appears unremarkable, a functional structure carrying the occasional train over the water, framed by the gentle waves of Sandusky Bay and the surrounding shoreline. Yet at night, the bridge transforms into a place steeped in legend and the unexplained. Visitors frequently report seeing ghostly trains drifting silently across the tracks, hearing screams echoing over the water, and encountering shadowy figures standing or moving along the rails with no apparent reason. The bridge has become a destination for paranormal enthusiasts, thrill seekers, and local residents drawn to its eerie reputation. The most common phenomenon reported at the Sandusky Bay Railroad Bridge is the appearance of ghostly trains. Witnesses describe entire locomotives drifting along the tracks without sound or the presence of a conductor. The phantom trains often appear as full, glowing forms, with lights flickering along the engines and cars, yet they make no clatter or vibration. Some travelers describe the train slowing as if aware of their presence, then fading away completely before anyone can approach. Others hear the rhythmic clatter of wheels along rails that are otherwise empty, the sound echoing across the water, only to vanish when investigated. These ghostly trains are believed to be echoes of the bridge's long history, recalling decades of railroad activity, and perhaps the spirits of engineers, conductors, and passengers who met untimely ends along the tracks. Accompanying the visual phenomena are chilling auditory experiences. Visitors often report hearing screams that seem to come from both the bridge itself and the waters below. Sometimes the cries are sharp and piercing, cutting through the night air, while other times they are long and mournful, carrying across the bay like echoes from the past. Many believe these sounds are tied to historical accidents, train derailments, or falls from the bridge, while others suggest they are expressions of lingering spirits attempting to communicate or warn the living. The screams often occur simultaneously with the appearance of shadowy figures or phantom trains, creating an immersive, multisensory haunting that is both terrifying and mesmerizing. Shadowy figures are another frequent sight. Visitors describe human-shaped forms walking along the tracks or standing motionless, appearing as silhouettes in the moonlight. Some seem dressed in the attire of railroad workers from decades past, while others are dark, flickering shapes difficult to define. Witnesses often note that these figures vanish instantly when approached, leaving no footprints or physical trace behind. Some report a lingering sense of being watched, an invisible presence following them along the rails, even after the apparition has disappeared. The bridge seems to hold the memories of countless lives connected to it, replaying moments of labor, travel, and tragedy for those daring enough to cross it at night. Physical sensations frequently accompany these encounters. Many visitors report sudden drops in temperature as they step onto the bridge, cold drafts that sweep across their bodies even on warm nights. Others feel a subtle pressure on their shoulders or a sensation of being brushed by an unseen hand. Tingling spines, goosebumps, and a general sense of unease are common, reinforcing the impression that the bridge is more than just a structure, is a threshold where the living intersect with the lingering energies of the past. Some visitors describe a heavy feeling of dread that intensifies as they move further onto the bridge, as if the spirits are guiding or warning them. One particularly vivid account comes from a man named Thomas, who visited the bridge on a foggy October evening. He had heard stories of the haunting but wanted to experience it firsthand. As he walked onto the tracks, he saw a full locomotive appear, glowing faintly under the dim moonlight, drifting silently toward him. Simultaneously, he heard a long, mournful scream echoing across the bay, followed by faint footsteps along the rails. Thomas froze as a shadowy figure materialized on the tracks nearby, standing perfectly still. When he stepped forward to get a closer look, the figure vanished, the train disappeared, and the footsteps and screams faded into silence. He hurried off the bridge, shaken by the combination of sight, sound, and sensation, the experience lingering in his mind long after he left. The haunting of the Sandusky Bay Railroad Bridge is deeply tied to its history. Built during a time when railroads were essential to commerce and transportation in the region, the bridge carried countless trains, workers, and passengers across the bay. Accidents, derailments, and fatal falls were unfortunately common, leaving a legacy of tragedy. Paranormal researchers and locals alike believe that the ghostly trains, shadowy figures, and screams are manifestations of these past events, lingering as residual energy that replay along the tracks for anyone crossing at night. Visitors often report multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. A single evening might include seeing a ghost train drifting along the rails, hearing distant screams echo across the water, feeling a cold brush against their body, and spotting a shadowy figure all within moments. The overlapping of these experiences creates a sense of immersion and disorientation, making the bridge feel like a space outside of time, where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge. The bridge becomes more than a means of crossing the bay. It becomes a corridor where the past manifests in the present, where unseen lives intersect with the living. Even during daylight, the bridge retains a subtle sense of unease. While it may appear calm and empty, locals warn that its full haunting is reserved for nightfall. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, faint echoes of phantom trains, or distant screams remind passers-by that the bridge is never truly abandoned. It is a liminal space, a place where memory, energy, and history linger, and where the spirits of those long gone continue to make themselves known. The Sandusky Bay Railroad Bridge is more than steel and timber spanning the water. Phantom trains drift silently across the tracks, screams echo across the bay, and shadowy figures appear and vanish without explanation. Cold drafts and unseen touches heighten the terror, creating a fully immersive haunting for anyone crossing after dark. The rails are never empty, the shadows never still, and the lingering spirits of the past continue to wait silently, ready to make their presence known to those who dare to tread among them. The Miami-Erie Canal Railroad Bridge in Hamilton County, Ohio, spans the remains of the old canal with a sturdy steel and wooden structure that has seen decades of trains crossing above the water. By day, it appears calm, a functional relic of Ohio's rich railroad history, framed by the quiet waters of the canal and the surrounding trees. But as night falls, the bridge takes on a far more sinister character. Visitors report phantom figures gliding silently along the rails, chilling whispers drifting through the air, ghostly screams echoing across the canal, and shadowy figures vanishing instantly into the darkness. The Miami-Erie Canal Railroad Bridge has become a magnet for paranormal enthusiasts, thrill seekers, and locals eager to witness its haunting firsthand. The most frequently reported phenomenon is the appearance of phantom figures along the tracks. Witnesses describe human-shaped apparitions pacing the rails, gliding without sound, or standing motionless, as if waiting for something long past. Some of these figures appear dressed in clothing reminiscent of railroad workers from decades ago, complete with hats and jackets, while others are indistinct shadows, their outlines flickering like smoke in the night. Many visitors note that when they attempt to approach these figures, they vanish without a trace, leaving no footprints on the wooden ties or steel rails. The bridge seems to retain the memory of countless lives connected to it, replaying moments of labor, travel, and tragedy for those daring enough to cross after dark. Auditory phenomena are a significant part of the haunting. Chilling whispers are commonly reported, carrying across the bridge in soft, unintelligible murmurs that seem to come from nowhere. Some visitors claim to hear faint voices calling their names, or fragments of conversations from long ago, as if the bridge itself is speaking from the past. Ghostly screams are another hallmark, sometimes sharp and piercing, sometimes mournful and prolonged. These cries are said to echo across the canal and surrounding trees, creating an eerie soundtrack that accompanies the appearance of phantom figures. Many believe the screams are the echoes of accidents, injuries, or tragic events that occurred on or near the bridge over the years. Others suggest they are warnings from restless spirits, attempting to communicate with or frighten away intruders. Visitors also report physical sensations that accompany these ghostly encounters. Sudden drops in temperature are common, with chills sweeping across the body even on otherwise warm nights. Some describe the feeling of invisible hands brushing against their shoulders or backs, and a pressure in the chest that intensifies with each step along the tracks. Tingling spines, goosebumps, and a deep sense of unease are frequent, reinforcing the impression that the bridge is not merely an abandoned structure but a conduit for lingering energy. Those who venture across the bridge often report a heightened awareness of the surroundings, as if the shadows and sounds are reaching directly into their senses. One particularly vivid account comes from a young man named Eric, who visited the bridge on a foggy November night. He had heard stories of the hauntings, but wanted to see for himself. As he stepped onto the rails, he noticed a shadowy figure gliding silently along the track ahead. At the same time, soft whispers seemed to swirl around him, growing louder for a moment before fading into silence. Suddenly, a sharp scream echoed across the canal, bouncing off the steel beams and wooden ties, and Eric felt a cold brush against his arm. When he turned, the figure had vanished, leaving him alone on the bridge with only the echoing scream and the damp night air. He hurried off the tracks, shaken by the convergence of sight, sound, and sensation. With the experience lingering in his mind long after he left, the haunting of the Miami-Erie Canal Railroad Bridge is closely tied to its history. Built during the height of railroad expansion in Hamilton County, the bridge carried countless trains, workers, and passengers across the canal. Accidents, derailments, and injuries were unfortunately common, leaving a legacy of sorrow and tragedy that some believe still inhabits the structure. Paranormal researchers and locals alike suggest that the phantom figures, whispers, and screams are residual manifestations of these past events, replaying over and over for anyone crossing the bridge at night. Visitors often report experiencing multiple phenomena at once. A single night on the bridge might include seeing a shadowy figure gliding across the rails, hearing whispers carried by the wind, feeling a cold draft or brush along the shoulder, and hearing a scream echoing across the canal all within moments. This layering of sensory experiences creates a disorienting and immersive haunting, making the bridge feel like a space outside of time, where the past intersects with the present and the living encounter the spirits of the departed. Even during daylight, the bridge retains a subtle sense of unease. While it may appear calm and empty, locals caution that its full haunting emerges only after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, faint echoes of whispers, or distant screams serve as reminders that the bridge is never truly abandoned. It is a liminal space, a threshold where the memories of past tragedies remain vivid and where the lingering presence of those long gone continues to be felt. The Miami-Erie Canal Railroad Bridge is more than steel and wood spanning the canal. Phantom figures glide silently along the rails. Whispers drift through the night, and ghostly screams echo across the water. Cold drafts sweep over visitors, unseen hands brush against their bodies, and shadows vanish as quickly as they appear. Anyone venturing onto the bridge after dark encounters a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into a fully immersive experience. The tracks are never empty, the shadows never still, and the spirits of the past wait silently, ready to make their presence known to anyone daring enough to cross among them. The Licking Valley Railroad Bridge in Licking County, Ohio, spans the quiet waters of the Licking River. Its aged steel and wooden structure, a reminder of the state's rich railroad history. By day, it seems like a relic of a bygone era, quietly blending into the surrounding forests and riverbanks. But as night falls, the bridge takes on a far more ominous character. Visitors frequently report sudden, piercing screams echoing across the river, cold drafts sweeping through the air, phantom footsteps following them along the rails, and shadowy shapes appearing along the steel beams. The Licking Valley Railroad Bridge has become a destination for thrill-seekers, paranormal enthusiasts, and locals intrigued by its reputation as one of the most haunted sites in Licking County. The most common reports involve sudden, unexplained screams. Visitors describe hearing long, mournful cries or sharp, piercing shrieks that seem to come from nowhere, reverberating across the bridge and along the river below. Some say the screams are intermittent, breaking the silence of the night, while others report a continuous, haunting wail that seems to surround them. Many believe these sounds are echoes of past tragedies, railroad accidents, derailments, or workers who met untimely deaths on the bridge. Others suggest the cries are attempts by restless spirits to communicate or to warn the living away from the rails. Whatever the source, the screams often coincide with other phenomena, heightening the sense of terror for anyone attempting to cross the bridge after dark. Phantom footsteps are another frequently reported phenomenon. Visitors often hear the rhythmic sound of shoes striking the wooden ties, echoing along the length of the bridge, even when no one else is present. Sometimes the footsteps approach closely, matching the pace of the person walking, only to fade suddenly when attention is directed toward their source. The sensation of being followed along the tracks is a common detail, with some visitors describing a growing sense of unease or dread as the footsteps continue. These auditory experiences create the impression that the bridge is alive with lingering energy, replaying moments of its past for anyone willing or unwitting enough to witness them. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the Licking Valley Railroad Bridge's haunting. Witnesses describe dark, human-shaped forms appearing along the steel beams or pacing the tracks, often flickering in and out of existence. Some figures resemble railroad workers from decades ago, complete with caps and work clothes, while others are indistinct silhouettes, their edges blurred as if formed from mist or shadow. Many visitors note that the figures vanish instantly when approached, leaving no footprints or traces behind. Others report fleeting glimpses of shapes hanging from or moving along the beams overhead, as if the bridge itself is replaying the movements of those who once worked upon it. Physical sensations frequently accompany these visual and auditory experiences. Sudden drops in temperature are reported, often localized to specific areas of the bridge, accompanied by cold drafts that sweep across the body. Some visitors feel the sensation of invisible hands brushing against their shoulders or back, while others describe a pressing weight on their chest or a tingling along the spine. Goosebumps, shivers, and an overall feeling of being watched are common, reinforcing the sense that the bridge is more than an abandoned structure. It is a threshold where the living encounter the lingering energies of the past. One vivid account comes from a man named Samuel, who visited the bridge on a foggy October night. He had heard stories about the hauntings, but wanted to experience it firsthand. As he stepped onto the rails, he heard the faint sound of footsteps behind him, echoing in rhythm with his own steps. Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out, bouncing across the river and sending chills down his spine. Samuel felt a cold breeze sweep over his shoulder, and when he turned, a shadowy figure appeared on the steel beam above, silhouetted against the faint moonlight. As he stepped closer, the figure vanished instantly, leaving him alone on the bridge with only the echoing scream and the rustling of the night wind. He hurried off the tracks, shaken by the combination of sight, sound, and sensation, with the experience lingering long after he left. The haunting of the Licking Valley Railroad Bridge is closely tied to its history. built during a time when railroads were a primary means of transportation and commerce. The bridge carried countless trains and workers across the Licking River. Accidents, derailments, and fatalities were unfortunately common, leaving a legacy of tragedy. Paranormal researchers and local residents alike believe that the phantom footsteps, sudden screams, shadowy figures, and cold drafts are manifestations of this past residual energy replaying for anyone crossing the bridge after dark. Visitors frequently report multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. A single night might include hearing footsteps echo along the wooden ties, seeing a shadowy figure on a steel beam, feeling a cold draft sweep across their body, and hearing a scream reverberate across the river all within moments. This layering of experiences creates a fully immersive haunting, drawing the living into a world where the past and present converge, and where the memories of those long gone continue to interact with the living. Even during daylight, the bridge retains a subtle, unsettling presence. While it may appear calm and deserted, locals caution that its true activity emerges only after dark. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, faint echoes of footsteps, or soft, distant screams serve as reminders that the bridge is never truly empty. It is a liminal space, a threshold where the tragic memories of the past linger, and where the spirits of those long gone continue to make their presence felt. The Licking Valley Railroad Bridge is more than steel and timber spanning the river. Phantom footsteps echo across the rails, sudden screams pierce the night, shadowy figures glide along the beams, and cold drafts sweep over visitors. Those who cross after dark encounter a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into a fully immersive experience. The tracks are never empty, the shadows never still, and the lingering spirits of the past wait silently, ready to make themselves known to anyone daring enough to tread among them. The Muskingum Junction Bridge in Zanesville, Ohio, stretches across the Muskingum River with a steel and wooden framework that has borne the weight of countless trains over decades. By day, it appears as a quiet, historic structure, blending into the river valley with its aged timbers and weathered steel. But at night, the bridge transforms into a place of eerie mystery and lingering spirits. Visitors often report phantom figures appearing along the old tracks, accompanied by unexplained sounds, the screech of metal, sudden clanging, and cries that seem to echo from decades past. The Muskingum Junction Bridge has gained a reputation as one of Zanesville's most haunted locations, drawing those curious about the supernatural, local thrill seekers, and paranormal enthusiasts eager to witness its strange and unsettling occurrences. The most common reports involve ghostly figures along the tracks, Many visitors note that these figures vanish instantly when approached, leaving the tracks empty but the memory of their presence lingering. The apparitions seem to replay moments of the bridge's long history, recreating the lives of workers, travelers, and even the victims of accidents that occurred on or near the structure. Mysterious sounds are a defining aspect of the bridge's haunting. Many report a heightened awareness of their surroundings, as if unseen eyes are observing their every move. These physical cues reinforce the perception that the bridge is not merely abandoned but imbued with the residual energy of those who once walked its rails or met tragic ends upon it. One account comes from a man named Robert, who visited the bridge on a foggy November night. As he stepped onto the tracks, he noticed a shadowy figure pacing slowly along the rails. Moments later, a sharp screech of metal echoed from above, followed by a mournful scream that reverberated across the river. A sudden cold draft swept past him, brushing along his shoulder. When he turned to confront the figure, it had vanished, leaving only the rhythmic dripping of water from the steel beams and the distant whisper of the wind. Robert hurried off the bridge, shaken by the convergence of sight, sound, and sensation, the haunting lingering in his memory long after he left. The history of the Muskingum Junction Bridge is closely tied to its paranormal activity, built during the expansion of Ohio's railroad network. The bridge carried countless trains, workers, and passengers across the river. Accidents, derailments, and fatalities were unfortunately common, leaving a legacy of tragedy embedded in the bridge itself. Paranormal researchers and local residents alike suggest that the phantom figures, metallic screeches, and anguished cries are residual manifestations of these events. Echoes of the past replaying in the present for anyone crossing the bridge after dark. Visitors often report experiencing multiple phenomena simultaneously. A single night may include seeing a shadowy figure pacing along the rails, hearing the screech of metal, feeling a sudden cold draft, and hearing a cry echo across the river, all occurring in rapid succession. The overlapping of sensory experiences creates a disorienting and immersive haunting, giving the impression that the bridge is a living conduit for the tragedies and memories of the past. Those who cross after dark feel as if they are walking through layers of time, encountering echoes of lives long gone. Even in daylight, the bridge maintains a subtle, unsettling presence. While it may appear calm and quiet, locals warn that its true activity emerges only after nightfall. Occasional glimpses of shadowy figures, faint metallic screeches, or distant cries serve as reminders that the bridge is never truly empty. It is a liminal space, a threshold between the living and the dead, where history and tragedy linger, and where the spirits of those long gone continue to make themselves known. The final haunted railroad bridge, stretching across the Ohio River Valley, is shrouded in a dense veil of history, tragedy, and lingering spirits. By day, it stands as a towering structure of steel and aged timbers, seemingly quiet and unassuming, connecting the rolling hills of Ohio with the wide expanse of the river below. Yet, when darkness falls, the bridge transforms into a place of profound unease, a nexus where the living and the spectral intersect. Visitors describe shadowy figures moving silently along the rails, screams that echo endlessly across the water and the valley, and a weight pressing down on their shoulders, as though unseen eyes are watching their every step. For locals, the bridge is a place to respect and fear, a final haunted crossing where phantom travelers are said to linger forever, trapped between life and death. The most persistent and chilling reports involve the shadowy figures that appear along the tracks. Witnesses describe human-shaped silhouettes pacing, gliding, or standing motionless along the rails, often appearing in the dim moonlight or the faint glow of distant lights. Some figures resemble railroad workers from decades past, their uniforms and hats faintly outlined in shadow, while others are formless, flickering shapes, barely distinguishable from the night itself. Many visitors note that these apparitions vanish instantly when approached, leaving the rails empty but the memory of their presence etched into the mind. The figures seem to replay the lives of those who worked, traveled, or died on the bridge, as if the structure itself holds the essence of countless souls who never truly left. Auditory phenomena are a defining aspect of the haunting. Visitors often hear piercing screams, echoing across the river and reverberating against the valley walls. These cries vary in tone, sometimes sharp and frantic, sometimes long and mournful, and seem to come from nowhere, filling the air with an unsettling resonance. Some believe the screams are echoes of tragic accidents, derailments, or falls from the bridge, while others suggest they are attempts by restless spirits to communicate or warn intruders. In addition to screams, the bridge is known for other unexplained sounds: the metallic screech of rails, the distant clatter of phantom trains, and the rhythmic pacing of footsteps on wooden ties. Each sound contributes to a sense of unease, reinforcing the bridge's reputation as a threshold between the living and the dead. Physical sensations are frequently reported alongside these visual and auditory encounters. Many visitors feel sudden drops in temperature, cold drafts that sweep across their bodies even on warm nights, or the sensation of invisible hands brushing along their shoulders. Some describe a heavy pressure on the chest, as if an unseen force is pressing down or observing them. Tingling spines, goosebumps, and a pervasive sense of being watched are common, creating an almost tactile connection to the spirits said to inhabit the bridge. These sensations, combined with the appearance of shadowy figures and phantom noises, immerse visitors in an experience that is as physical as it is psychological. One particularly vivid account comes from a woman named Clara, who ventured onto the bridge one foggy November night. As she stepped onto the rails, she heard footsteps echoing behind her, matching her own pace. A sudden scream erupted from the river below, echoing against the valley walls, and a cold draft swept across her shoulders. When she turned, she saw a shadowy figure gliding along the tracks, moving silently toward her. Before she could react, it vanished, leaving only the echo of footsteps and the lingering chill of the night air. Clara described the experience as disorienting and overwhelming, the combination of sight, sound, and sensation leaving her shaken long after she stepped back onto solid ground. The haunting of the final haunted railroad bridge is intimately tied to its history. Built during a period when railroads were critical to Ohio's economy, the bridge carried countless trains, workers, and passengers across the Ohio River. Accidents, derailments, and fatalities occurred with tragic regularity, embedding a legacy of sorrow and tragedy into the structure itself. Paranormal researchers and local residents alike believe that the shadowy figures, endless screams, and heavy presences are manifestations of these past events. Residual energy that replays over and over for anyone crossing the bridge at night. The bridge itself seems to serve as a conduit, connecting the present with the lingering spirits of those who never left. Visitors often report multiple phenomena occurring simultaneously. A single night may include seeing a shadowy figure pacing along the rails, hearing the scream of a phantom victim, feeling a cold draft or invisible brush against the shoulder, and sensing a heavy weight pressing down all within moments. The convergence of these experiences creates a fully immersive haunting, giving the impression that the bridge is a living archive of past tragedies. Those who cross after dark feel as though they are walking among memories, caught between the world of the living and the realm of spirits. Even during daylight, the bridge maintains a subtle sense of unease. While it may appear calm and deserted, locals warn that its full haunting emerges only after nightfall. Occasional glimpses of figures, distant echoes of screams, or unexplained metallic sounds serve as reminders that the bridge is never truly empty. It is a liminal space, a threshold where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge, and where phantom travelers continue their eternal journey along the rails. The final haunted railroad bridge is more than steel and wood, spanning the Ohio River Valley. Shadowy figures glide silently along the tracks, endless screams echo across the valley, and visitors feel the oppressive weight of unseen eyes upon them. Cold drafts and invisible touches accompany each crossing, creating a haunting that blends history, tragedy, and the unexplained into a fully immersive experience. Anyone who dares to traverse the bridge after dark confronts a chilling intersection of life and death where the rails are never empty, the shadows never still, and the lingering spirits of the past wait silently, ready to make their presence known. These are the haunted railroad bridges of Ohio, where phantom trains drift silently, shadowy figures move along abandoned tracks, and screams echo across valleys. Each bridge carries a history of tragedy, accidents, and spirits who refuse to leave. If you ever find yourself crossing these bridges at night, stay alert. The wind may carry ghostly screams, shadows may move along the rails, and the cold drafts may be more than just the night air. The past lingers here, alive in ways the living can barely perceive. Thank you for exploring Ohio's haunted railroad bridges with me. Stay cautious, stay curious, and always respect the spirits who roam these rails, trapped in their eternal journeys.